Chapter 32-27. Xiao Chen's group arrived at the Qin Yun sect under the lead of Wang Xian and the old ancestor of the Qin Yun sect. They were not worried that the Qin Yun sect would harm them. First of all, the Qin Yun sect did not have the guts to do so. Even if they did not have the ability to do so. As long as the Qin Yun sect made any strange moves, Xiao Chen could guarantee that they would end up like the second Heaven Fiend Hall. Wang Xian and the old ancestor of the Qin Yun sect were obviously smart people. They knew that they should try their best to be on good terms with Xiao Chen's group and not become enemies. In addition, the relationship between the two sides was not bad. At least they had some friendship. Even if this friendship was based on benefits, it was still a good start. Therefore, as long as Wang Xian and the rest did not lose their minds, they would definitely not do anything that would harm Xiao Chen's group. In fact, it was indeed so. Along the way, Wang Xian and the old ancestor of the Qin Yun sect performed very well. They did not encounter any trouble along the way and arrived at the Qin Yun sect. Xiao Chen said to Wang Xian directly, "Sect leader Wang Xian, my brothers are about to break through. I'll have to trouble you to make arrangements for them." Hearing this, Wang Xian nodded repeatedly. At the same time, he sized up Long Qing, Lin Yuan and the rest without batting an eyelid. There was a storm in his heart. Long Qing, Lin Yuan and the rest were now in the complete ancient era living realm. Such cultivation was actually not in Wang Xian's eyes. However, such a situation would be completely different after Long Qing and the rest broke through to the Saint Ancestor realm. They also had some understanding of Long Qing and the rest. They knew that these people were very strong. They could fight against the Saint Ancestor realm when they were in the ancient era living realm. If they broke through to the Saint Ancestor realm, their fighting strength would definitely increase greatly. There was no doubt that if Long Qing and the rest could really break through, then Xiao Chen's group would be able to do whatever they wanted in the East Star continent. "Okay, I'll make arrangements now." Of course, to Wang Xian, he definitely hoped that Xiao Chen's group would be stronger. It would be best if the other two forces came to provoke Xiao Chen's group again. At that time, Xiao Chen and the others would take action, and his Blue Cloud sect would be able to dominate the entire East Star continent. Of course, this was just Wang Xian's own thought. He didn't dare to have the slightest bit of scheming anymore. If Xiao Chen and the others found out about this, all their previous efforts would be in vain. Therefore, they could only let nature take its course and not push it. Under Wang Xian's arrangement, Long Qing and the others quickly began their closed-door training. Xiao Chen and Lin Yun didn't have much to explain to them. After all, they had been immersed in the ancient living beings for so many years. His foundation was more than sufficient, and he knew exactly how to break through to the sacred ancestor realm. Now that he had sufficient resources, breaking through shouldn't be a problem. It was just a matter of time. He gave the Buddhist bone relic to the monk as well. This time around, the monk had definitely gained the most. Just the Buddhist bone relic alone was enough to allow the monk to be reborn. Long Qing and the others went into closed-door training. Xiao Chen and Lin Yun stayed in the Blue Cloud sect. As for the Blue Cloud sect, they also began to take over the spirit veins and properties of the Heaven Fiend Hall. Of course, the former territory of the Heaven Fiend Hall was also given to the Blue Cloud sect according to the agreement. However, such a big move by the Blue Cloud sect naturally attracted the attention of the other forces in the East Star continent. Anyone could see that the Blue Cloud sect wanted to annex everything left behind by the Heaven Fiend Hall. Such a big piece of meat, no one was willing to watch the Blue Cloud sect swallow it all. However, due to the power of the Blue Cloud sect, the ordinary forces didn't dare to provoke them. Everyone was waiting to see the reaction of the other two forces. As one of the four major forces in the East Star continent, now that the Heaven Fiend Hall was destroyed and the Blue Cloud sect was anxious to take everything for themselves, the other two forces definitely wouldn't be indifferent. In fact, it was indeed so. The Dragon Phoenix Valley and the life-ending pavilion were already a little restless. Especially the sect masters of the two forces, they had already contacted each other, and seemed to be planning to have a go at it. At this moment, in the main hall of the Dragon Phoenix Valley, a middle-aged man was sitting on the main seat. In front of him, there was a light screen. On the light screen, there was a feminine youth. The middle-aged man's name was Long Lai, the Valley Master of the Dragon Phoenix Valley. The feminine youth's name was Een Sha, the Pavilion Master of the Life-Ending Pavilion. Both of them were at the Divine Ancestor Great Perfection Realm. Een Sha had a cold smile on his face as he looked at Long Lai and laughed. Why do I only see Valley Master Long and not Valley Master Feng? The Dragon Phoenix Valley was the #1 force in the East Star Continent in name. Compared to the Heaven Fiend Hall, the Blue Cloud Sect and the Life-Ending Pavilion, the Dragon Phoenix Valley's strength was stronger. The main reason was that the two Valley Masters of the Dragon Phoenix Valley were husband and wife. They were also experts at the Divine Ancestor Great Perfection Realm. In the face of Een Sha's question, Long Lai only replied faintly. Feng is still in seclusion. She will be out in a few days. Let's not talk about this. What do you think of the matter that I told you? This time, Long Lai took the initiative to suggest joining forces with Een Sha because he had received news that the Blue Cloud sect seemed to have formed an alliance with Shao Chen and his group. With the support of that group of mysterious people, it would be difficult for the Dragon Phoenix Valley to contend with them alone. Because of this, Long Lai took the initiative to contact Een Sha. He wanted to gather the strength of the two major sects to get a share of the pie. However, in the face of Long Lai's question, Een Sha shook his head and said, "To be honest, I think it's not wise to take action now." "Why? You refuse?" "No, I don't refuse. I just want to wait." "Wait? Wait until the Blue Cloud sect completely takes over the Heaven Fiend Hall's territory?" Long Lai was somewhat dissatisfied with Een Sha's answer. Now, he could only watch as the Blue Cloud sect slowly took over the Heaven Fiend Hall's territory. This was unbearable for Long Lai. Once the Blue Cloud sect really took over the Heaven Fiend Hall's territory, wouldn't it mean that the Blue Cloud sect could contend with the Dragon Phoenix Valley? After being the #1 force in the East Star Continent for so many years, how could Long Lai be willing to let others ride on his head? However, in the face of this, Een Sha still said calmly, "So what if they take it over? As the saying goes, it's easy to conquer a country, but difficult to defend it. To be able to take it over, you have to be able to defend it. Now that the Blue Cloud sect has the support of that group of outsiders, do you think that they can't defend it?" When he said this, Long Lai's face turned ugly. It was because of Shao Chen and his group that Long Lai was so fearful. Otherwise, how could he have joined forces with Een Sha? If it was just the Blue Cloud sect alone, Long Lai was not afraid at all. What he was really worried about was Shao Chen and his group. But now Een Sha actually wanted him to wait. Was this a joke? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 32-28. Een Sha's words made Long Lai very unhappy. In the end, Long Lai said with a face full of displeasure, "Looks like you're no longer as brave as you were back then." Een Sha wasn't angry at Long Lai's words and the smile on his face didn't decrease. "You're as reckless as ever. Do you really think it's a good opportunity to make a move now? Isn't it? What else can we do when the Azure Cloud sect finishes eating the food in the Heaven Fiend Hall? Forget it. With your intelligence, it's hard for me to explain it to you." As she spoke, she intended to leave. However, right at this moment, a beautiful woman appeared out of thin air on the chair beside Long Lai. She was wearing a red robe and had a beautiful appearance. This was the second Valley Master of the Dragon Phoenix Valley, Feng Ling. "Pavilion Master Een Sha, please wait." Feng Ling appeared and stopped Een Sha. Then, she smiled apologetically. "My family is reckless. Pavilion Master Een Sha, please don't blame him. I understand what you mean. Looking at Feng Ling, a strange look flashed across Yin Sha's eyes. Then, he smiled and nodded. Valley Master Feng, you're too polite. I've known Brother Long for many years. I won't get angry over such a small matter. In Yin Sha's opinion, Long Lai was reckless. Although he was strong, he was just a boorish man. He was far less dangerous than Feng Ling. That's right. Among the two valley masters of the Dragon Phoenix Valley, Yin Sha was more afraid of Feng Ling. This woman was scheming and her methods were very sinister. Most importantly, as a woman, Feng Ling didn't have any so-called loyalty. Her way of doing things was based on benefits. There were many people in the East Star continent who had been cheated by this woman. It could even be said that Feng Ling was the one who handled all the big and small matters in the Dragon Phoenix Valley. Long Lai didn't want to care and couldn't care. Long Lai didn't even know many things that the Dragon Phoenix Valley had done. Feng Ling was the real brain of the Dragon Phoenix Valley. Long Lai didn't understand what Yin Sha meant, but Feng Ling had long understood. From Yin Sha's words, it wasn't hard to guess that the life-ending pavilion already knew something. Perhaps Shao Chun and the rest had no intention of the East Star continent. In other words, this group of outsiders was just a passerby. The reason why they helped the Azure Cloud sect was because of some kind of transaction. In that case, if the Dragon Phoenix Valley and life-ending pavilion attacked now, it would be equivalent to offending these outsiders. This was obviously not worth it. It would be better to wait for a period of time and wait for Shao Chun and the others to leave before making a move against the Qin Yun sect. At that time, without the help of Shao Chun and the others, even if the Qin Yun sect had completely taken over the Heaven Fiend Hall's territory and properties, with the combined strength of the Dragon Phoenix Valley and the life-ending pavilion, they would be able to take it back. At that time, they could even directly destroy the Blue Cloud sect. At that time, the East Star continent would be the world of the Dragon Phoenix Valley and the life-ending pavilion. Feng Ling even had an idea in her heart at this moment. That was to take advantage of the destruction of the Azure Cloud sect before attacking the life-ending pavilion. In any case, in terms of strength, the Dragon Phoenix Valley definitely had the advantage. As long as the life-ending pavilion was destroyed, the Dragon Phoenix Valley would become the only overlord of the East Star continent. It had to be said that Feng Ling was indeed smart and far-sighted. They were still discussing the matter of the Blue Cloud sect, but she had already set her sights on the life-ending pavilion. Perhaps it was because of this that in the eyes of the Yin Sha, Feng Ling's level of danger was far higher than Long Lai's. The Yin Sha Pavilion Master's suggestion is not bad, but after the matter is done, how do we divide it? Naturally, it's 50-50. No problem. This time, Feng Ling agreed very straightforwardly. The Yin Sha was not surprised by this. However, Feng Ling added at this moment, "Don't worry. However, I think that other than waiting, we should still take the initiative to attack. At least, we should express goodwill to that group of outsiders." Taking the initiative to express goodwill was Feng Ling's idea. It was to prevent any unforeseen events from happening when they attacked the Qin Yun sect. After all, everything now was just a guess. No one knew the extent of the relationship between Shao Chun and the Qin Yun sect. If the two sides really had other relations, then when they attacked the Qin Yun sect, it would probably be dangerous. Taking the initiative to express goodwill was something that the Yin Sha had to do. The Yin Sha did not reject this. Probing was also what he wanted. That's fine, but who should we send? Since they were going to take the initiative to contact Shao Chun and the others, the people they sent definitely could not be casual. The best choice was naturally one of the three, Yin Sha, Long Lai and Feng Ling. With the three of their status, personally visiting would also show more sincerity. Feng Ling smiled slightly in response to the Yin Sha's question. "I just came out of seclusion. Why don't I go?" Feng Ling took the initiative to volunteer. Long Lai, who was at the side, did not have much of a reaction. It was as if Feng Ling had directly grasped all the right to speak since she came, while Long Lai had become a foil. Moreover, looking at Long Lai's appearance, he seemed to be used to it. He was not unhappy at all and only felt that everything was normal. On the other hand, the Insha looked at Feng Ling with deep meaning. Facing the Insha's scrutinizing gaze, Feng Ling calmly looked back at him. After a while, the Insha finally nodded. In that case, I'll have to trouble Valley Master Feng. It's a small matter. Since we're cooperating, we naturally have to work together. That's good. After the discussion, the Insha did not stay for long. Soon, the light screen was a small matter. On the other hand, Long Lai stood up casually and hugged Feng Ling with a smile. Madam, you've been in seclusion for a long time this time. Father misses you to death. In the face of Long Lai's enthusiasm, Feng Ling quietly dodged. After which, she let out a lovely laugh. Husband, if you want to play, you'd better go find your concubines. I still have important things to do. After saying that, she left gracefully. Long Lai did not mind at all, even though he and Feng Ling had not been intimate for a long time. In Long Lai's heart, the person he had always loved the most was Feng Ling. In his opinion, Feng Ling was sensible. She did not even object to him looking for other women outside. Moreover, she would take the initiative to meet these women and bring them to the Dragon Phoenix Valley. In Long Lai's opinion, this was completely Feng Ling's deep sense of righteousness towards him. Who would not like such a woman? Unfortunately, Long Lai did not see that when Feng Ling turned around, a look of disdain flashed in her eyes. There was even a hint of disdain. On the way out of the hall, Feng Ling's expression became calm once again. However, her natural charm was completely natural, making her extremely alluring. I wonder who the two war ancestor realm kings are. I'm looking forward to it. She looked in the direction of the Blue Cloud sect and revealed a faint smile. This smile made Feng Ling even more beautiful than before. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 32-29. Feng Ling was prepared to take the initiative to visit Xiao Chun and Lin Yun in the Azure Cloud sect. Although Feng Ling told Long Lai and Yin Sha that she wanted to take the initiative to befriend Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, only she herself knew the actual situation. She personally went to the Dragon Phoenix Valley's treasure vault. Since she was going to visit, she definitely couldn't go empty-handed. Even if Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were both war ancestor realm kings and might not be interested in the treasures of the Dragon Phoenix Valley, it was still a token of goodwill. Seeing Feng Ling coming, the two elders in charge of guarding the treasure vault took the initiative to welcome her. Although Feng Ling was beautiful and extremely attractive, the two elders didn't dare to take another look at her. In the Dragon Phoenix Valley, almost all the elders knew that Feng Ling was an extremely dangerous existence. She was incomparably beautiful, but her methods were ruthless. If anyone dared to covet Feng Ling, they would definitely end up in a miserable state. Even Long Lai was being toyed with by Feng Ling from the beginning to the end. Ignoring the two of them, Feng Ling directly entered the treasure vault and began to choose a gift. 3 days later, Feng Ling came to the Azure Cloud sect alone. Hearing that it was Feng Ling, a hint of fear flashed across Wang Xian's eyes. What is this woman doing here? She seems to be here to visit Senior Xiao Chun and Senior Lin Yun. I reckon this woman is up to no good again. Wang Xian sneered. He knew very well that this woman would definitely not do something useless. Every step of hers was carefully planned. If anyone underestimated this woman, they would probably suffer a great loss. Feng Ling was invited to the main hall. Looking at Wang Xian, Feng Ling smiled slightly. This smile was truly indescribably beautiful. The few elders of the Azure Cloud sect who were watching couldn't help but be stunned. But very quickly, these people lowered their heads and didn't dare to look at Feng Ling. Although a beauty was good, if this beauty was a poisonous snake that could take your life at any time, then you shouldn't provoke her. Otherwise, you wouldn't even know how you died. Their relationship with the Dragon Phoenix Valley had never been good. It could even be said that they were somewhat hostile. Therefore, the upper echelons of the Azure Cloud sect knew a lot of extremely secretive things about the Dragon Phoenix Valley. Among them was the matter regarding Long Lai and Feng Ling. It was said that Long Lai was able to marry Feng Ling because Feng Ling needed someone like Long Lai to help her. Not to mention other things, this Long Lai's strength was very strong and his talent was also very high. Feng Ling had taken a fancy to him because of this. However, the marriage between the two actually had no feelings at all, or it could be said that it was Long Lai's unrequited love. No one knew the specifics, but it wasn't hard to see that the relationship between the two of them was very complicated. Long Lai now had 3 sons, but none of them were from Feng Ling. They were all born from Long Lai's other concubines. Furthermore, the real person in charge of Dragon Phoenix Valley was actually Feng Ling, and not Long Lai. Valley Master Feng, what brings you to my Qin Yun sect today? Looking at the beauty in front of him, Wang Xian asked with a chuckle. Although he was all smiles on the surface, he had always been wary of this woman. In response to Wang Xian's question, Feng Ling smiled faintly. Sect Master Wang Xian, don't you know why I'm here? Feng Ling was here to see Xiao Chen and Lin Yun. Regarding this matter, Feng Ling was confident that Wang Xian wouldn't stop her. This was because he had no reason to make a decision for Xiao Chen and Lin Yun, so he would definitely ask Xiao Chen and Lin Yun for instructions. As expected, after hearing this, Wang Xian replied without much hesitation. I can't make the decision on this matter. I have to ask Senior. Valley Master Feng, please wait a moment. No problem. After saying that, Wang Xian went straight to Xiao Chen and Lin Yun's residence. After notifying them, Wang Xian respectfully bowed and asked when he saw Xiao Chen and Lin Yun. Senior, Valley Master Feng Ling of Dragon Phoenix Valley has come to our Qin Yun sect to pay her respects to Senior. Oh, Dragon Phoenix Valley. Xiao Chen and Lin Yun naturally knew about Dragon Phoenix Valley. They didn't expect that they would actually come to pay a visit. This was rather interesting. After pondering for a moment, Xiao Chen said with a chuckle. Let her come. Xiao Chen was still somewhat interested in Feng Ling's visit. After receiving Xiao Chen's consent, Wang Xian respectfully retreated. Although he didn't want Dragon Phoenix Valley to have any connection with Xiao Chen, Wang Xian had already agreed. Since Xiao Chen had already agreed to meet Feng Ling, Wang Xian naturally didn't dare to have any objections. This was also the reason why Feng Ling was so confident in this trip. Soon, under Wang Xian's lead, Feng Ling met Xiao Chen and Lin Yun. Wang Xian was smart enough not to stay for long. Since he couldn't stop Dragon Phoenix Valley from contacting Xiao Chen and the others, then Wang Xian could only do his best to leave a good impression on Xiao Chen and the others. When he first saw Feng Ling, Xiao Chen's first impression was that she was stunning. That's right, this was a woman who could amaze Xiao Chen. In terms of appearance and temperament, she didn't lose to Qin Shuru and the others in the slightest. However, with Xiao Chen's current standards, he naturally wouldn't be attracted by beauty. In just an instant, Xiao Chen said indifferently, You are Feng Ling? The others faced Feng Ling. Perhaps they would be absent-minded, perhaps they would have many thoughts, but Xiao Chen was abnormally calm. Regarding this, Feng Ling was also disappointed. As expected of a king of the War Ancestor realm, even when facing her, he could still be so calm. This little girl is Feng Ling. I heard that the 2 seniors were staying in the Azure Cloud sect, so I specially came to pay a visit. Oh, tell me, what is your purpose for coming here? Xiao Chen didn't think that Feng Ling was just here to pay a visit. Although he hadn't interacted with her before, Xiao Chen's intuition told him that this woman in front of him wasn't simple. At least, she wasn't as simple as she seemed on the surface. Feng Ling had always been magnanimous in the face of Xiao Chen's inquiry. Just this bearing alone was not something that Wang Xian and Lu Jun could compare to. This was also the strongest person Xiao Chen had seen in the East Star continent. In fact, from the beginning, Xiao Chen could tell that Feng Ling's cultivation had already reached the half-step war ancestor realm. In other words, her cultivation was higher than Wang Xian, Lu Jun, Yin Sha, and Long Lai. And according to the rumors in the outside world, Feng Ling's cultivation was only at the perfected divine ancestor realm. She wasn't even as good as her husband, Long Lai. This woman had deceived everyone in the East Star continent, including her husband, who was with her day and night. And to be able to do this, no matter what her methods were, just her temperament was deep enough. And often, people who had deep thoughts and knew how to hide were very dangerous. This was the experience that Xiao Chen had gained along the way. This little girl doesn't dare to hide it from Senior. This time, I did come to discuss something with Senior. This little girl boldly says that this time, I came for the territory and business of the Heaven Fiend Hall. What the Azure Cloud sect can give Senior, this little girl can also give. What the Azure Cloud sect can't give, this little girl can still give, including myself. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 32:30. What the Qing Yun sect can give you, I can also give you. What the Qing Yun sect can't give you, I can still give you, including myself. As she spoke, Feng Ling smiled charmingly at Xiao Chen and Lin Yun. However, she had underestimated Xiao Chen and Lin Yun. If it were anyone else, they might really be attracted to such a beautiful and moving Feng Ling. However, Xiao Chen and Lin Yun did not change their expressions at all. Xiao Chen and Lin Yun had long disregarded beauty. Moreover, which of the women around Xiao Chen and Lin Yun were not outstanding beauties? Although Feng Ling was also of the highest quality, she was only on par with Qin Shuru and Fairy of 100 Flowers. Therefore, Xiao Chen did not care about what Feng Ling said at all. Do you think you are very attractive to us? I don't dare, I'm just willing to pay any price. Hee, alright, don't think about the Heaven Fiend Hall anymore. What happened before and what will happen after, at least before we leave. The Dragon Phoenix Valley might be able to offer better conditions than the Qin Yun sect, but Xiao Chen did not care at all. Whether it was more or less, it was completely meaningless to the current Xiao Chen. Since he had promised the Qin Yun sect first, Xiao Chen would naturally keep his word. As for whether the Qin Yun sect could keep these things after he and the others left, it would depend on their ability. After all, from the beginning, everyone had discussed that Xiao Chen and the others would only help the Qin Yun sect take over the Heaven Fiend Hall's territory. Other matters had nothing to do with Xiao Chen and the others. Moreover, Xiao Chen and the others could not stay in the scattered star ocean forever. Everyone's real destination was the central region. Hearing Xiao Chen's answer, Feng Ling did not show too much disappointment, as if she had already guessed it. She bowed slightly and smiled. Since Senior has said so, I will naturally obey. However, I actually have one more thing to tell Senior today, or rather, a piece of news. Speak. This woman was really scheming. From the moment they met until now, every word she said had a purpose. Seeing Xiao Chen's indifferent look, Feng Ling said with a chuckle. Senior, you should know that our scattered star sea is mainly made up of 4 continents. At the border between the East Star Continent and the South Star Continent, there's a place called Constellation Island. This star cluster island was originally a deserted island, but recently, there have been frequent anomalies, and tokens have inexplicably appeared. According to our investigation, there should be an Emperor's tomb on this star cluster island, and these tokens are the keys to enter. My Dragon Phoenix Valley was lucky enough to obtain a few tokens previously. Today, this little girl specially gave them to the 2 seniors. As she spoke, Feng Ling withdrew a spatial ring and passed it to Xiao Chen. Besides the 2 tokens, there were many treasures within the spatial ring. These were all Feng Ling's greeting gifts to Xiao Chen. However, Xiao Chen was not even interested in looking at these treasures. He directly took out his token. It was very ordinary, and he could not see anything extraordinary about it. After carefully studying it for a moment, Xiao Chen did not find anything, so he asked indifferently, "Are you sure it's a ruler's tomb?" 90% sure. Feng Ling was very smart and did not say anything definite. She only said 90%, but this was basically no different from being sure. Hearing this, Xiao Chen looked at Lin Yun. Obviously, he was asking Lin Yun for her opinion. Was Feng Ling's words reliable? In response, Lin Yun nodded his head. First of all, Feng Ling would not dare to joke about this matter, not to mention that it was to Xiao Chen and Lin Yun. If she dared to lie to them, the Dragon Phoenix Valley would not need to exist anymore. Secondly, even if everything was fake, there was no harm in taking a look. Moreover, it was related to a ruler's tomb, so there should be many good things inside. Xiao Chen and Lin Yun were more interested in the inheritance left behind by a ruler. It might not be useful to them, but at least it could let Xiao Chen and the others understand more about a ruler and how to break through. Seeing Lin Yun nod, Xiao Chen made a decision in his heart. Not bad. When are we leaving? Half a month. Okay, you can come to the Azure Cloud sect when the time comes. Xiao Chen planned to go and take a look. At the same time, he asked her to leave. Xiao Chen had no interest in Feng Ling from the beginning to the end. Regarding this, a hint of disappointment flashed across Feng Ling's eyes for the first time. This was the first time she had been rejected by a man. However, no matter how unwilling she was, since Xiao Chen had already spoken, Feng Ling had no choice but to back down. While Feng Ling left, on the other side, Wang Xian immediately found his patriarch. Wang Xian was a little nervous that Feng Ling had come personally. Or rather, he was more concerned about the matter of the Heaven Fiend Hall. It was clear that Feng Ling had come for the matter of the Heaven Fiend Hall. If Xiao Chen and the others were persuaded by Feng Ling, then all the efforts of the Azure Cloud sect would be in vain. This made Wang Xian very worried. Compared to him, the Azure Cloud sect's patriarch was very calm. I've already said that you have to be calm no matter what. Patriarch, how can I be calm? Do you think Feng Ling can convince them? Who can say for sure? If the Dragon Phoenix Valley is willing to pay more and raise a higher request, there might be a chance to move the two seniors. Haha, you really underestimate the King of the War Ancestor Realm. In fact, from the moment the two of them agreed to us, the Heaven Fiend Hall's territory was already ours. No matter how many resources the Dragon Phoenix Valley took out, it couldn't change this point. Compared to that little bit of treasure, the King of the War Ancestor Realm cares more about face and their own promises. What is a king? Once a word is said, it's hard to take it back. This is the demeanor of a king. So, it's impossible to use treasures to move the king. Moreover, instead of worrying about gains and losses, you might as well think about how to successfully hold onto the Heaven Fiend Hall's territory. You must know that those two will leave sooner or later. When they are here, they might be able to intimidate everyone. But what about once they leave? At that time, there will probably be many people who will jump out. At that time, it will be the true test of our Azure Cloud sect. Can we keep the Heaven Fiend Hall's territory? The Azure Cloud sect's patriarch said indifferently. Wang Xian was too nervous, so much so that he didn't see what he should have seen. When Feng Ling came, he panicked. He didn't understand that the so-called treasure was nothing in the eyes of the War Ancestor Realm. Or rather, the treasure that Xiao Chen and the others wanted was not something that the Dragon Phoenix Valley could take out. So, what could Feng Ling use to convince Xiao Chen and the others? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 32-31. Just because of Feng Ling, Wang Xian was scared to such an extent. The ancestor of the Azure Cloud sect was indescribably disappointed. Although Feng Ling was not simple, as the sect leader of the Azure Cloud sect, Wang Xian was indeed embarrassed. Don't forget, Wang Xian and Feng Ling were destined to be opponents. But could Wang Xian really lead the Azure Cloud sect to deal with the Dragon Phoenix Valley? His heart was filled with mixed feelings. In the end, the ancestor of the Azure Cloud sect waved his hand and said, "Go, think about what happens next. That's the right way to go." After leaving the Azure Cloud sect's ancestor's place, Wang Xian was indeed a little embarrassed. He knew that he was too nervous earlier and had lost all face. After returning to his residence, Wang Xian asked an elder of the Azure Cloud sect beside him, "Where's Feng Ling? Is she still with the two seniors?" "She left a long time ago. She didn't stay for long." Feng Ling had left, and she had only stayed with Xiao Qin and Lin Yun for a short while. It was obvious that she had been chased out by Xiao Qin. Hearing this, Wang Xian couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. As long as Xiao Qin and Lin Yun didn't reach any agreement with the Dragon Phoenix Valley, it would be fine. It had to be said that just from this point alone, Wang Xian was indeed far inferior to Feng Ling. As the sect leader of a sect, he was actually complacent over such a small matter. If it was Feng Ling, she probably wouldn't take these things to heart at all. On the other side, Feng Ling, who was released from the Azure Cloud sect back to the Dragon Phoenix Valley, did not feel the slightest bit annoyed by Xiao Chen's attitude. In any case, she had already achieved her goal. Xiao Qin and Lin Yun had agreed to go to Cluster Star Island. She knew that even a War Ancestor Realm King would not be able to refuse the Emperor's tomb. This was Feng Ling's true goal. After returning to the Dragon Phoenix Valley, Long Lai immediately appeared to welcome her. When he saw Feng Ling, he asked with concern, "How is it? Did everything go smoothly?" Perhaps Long Lai himself didn't realize that when he was in front of Feng Ling, he didn't look like the head of a sect at all. He was more like a servile servant. This scene was naturally witnessed by many elders of the Dragon Phoenix Valley, and Feng Ling only replied indifferently to this. "I'm all right. I'm tired. I need to rest." After saying that, he ignored Long Lai and left by himself. Looking at Feng Ling's departing figure, not only was Long Lai not angry in the slightest, he even felt that all of this was natural. Long Lai was indeed in Feng Ling's grasp. In fact, it wasn't just Long Lai. There was another biggest secret in Dragon Phoenix Valley. Other than Feng Ling, no one else knew about this secret. On the way back, Feng Ling went through a secret entrance and went underground. Who would have imagined that there would actually be such an enormous space beneath Feng Ling's residence, and at the center of this space, there was an old man who was bound by countless chains. Furthermore, there was a huge formation on the ground. With the help of the array, the old man's spiritual energy was constantly being extracted. Not only was it spiritual energy, but it was also the power of law and other powers. All of this energy was gathered into a small pool at the side, forming a huge waterside spring. With the sound of footsteps, Feng Ling slowly walked in front of the old man. If there were outsiders present, they would definitely be able to recognize that this old man was none other than the patriarch of Dragon Phoenix Valley and Long Lai's biological father, Long Mo. To the outside world, Long Mo had always announced that he was in closed-door cultivation. Who would have thought that he would actually appear here? Furthermore, it seemed that he was actually controlled by Feng Ling. A half-step combat ancestor realm powerhouse was actually able to control a combat ancestor realm powerhouse. This was truly unbelievable. However, this scene was the truth. Seeing Feng Ling arrive, Long Mo, who was already as thin as a matchstick, slowly raised his head. His eyes were filled with hatred as he sneered. "The worst thing I've done in my life is to accept you as my disciple and invite a wolf into my house." That's right. Feng Ling was Long Mo's disciple, and Long Lai was Long Mo's son. The two of them had known each other since they were young, which was why they got married. However, Long Mo did not expect Feng Ling's heart to be so deep. Especially after marrying Long Lai and becoming the Valley Master of Dragon Phoenix Valley, Feng Ling's ambition continued to grow. In the end, she even used a scheme to capture him. As for Feng Ling's intention, Long Mo already knew. This woman actually wanted to use him to break through to the combat ancestor realm. The formation that trapped him was called the Spirit Fiend Formation. It could continuously extract spiritual power and the power of laws from Long Mo's body. In the end, these spiritual power and the power of laws were naturally all absorbed by Feng Ling. As for Long Mo, his final outcome was naturally to die from exhaustion of spiritual power. Looking at Long Mo's face filled with hatred, Feng Ling smiled indifferently. Invite a wolf into your house? No, this is called survival of the fittest. You and your father don't have the ability to bring glory to the Dragon Phoenix Valley, so I appeared. You can't blame anyone for this. Feng Ling had never hidden her ambition. She wanted to control absolute power, and she also wanted to break through to the combat ancestor realm or even become a ruler. However, with her talent, it was very difficult to break through to the combat ancestor realm using normal method. That was why she targeted Long Mo. Using Long Mo's many years of cultivation and life as the price to help her break through. This was also why Feng Ling's cultivation had improved so quickly that it had even surpassed Long Lai. Hearing Feng Ling's words, Long Mo did not speak again. From the anger and killing intent at the beginning to the resistance and hope at the end, to the despair at the moment. In fact, Long Mo had long understood that he no longer had a chance. He could not break this spirit fiend formation at his peak, let alone in his current state. As for his Long Lai, that idiot, his biological father had been missing for so long, but he did not notice at all. With his ability, it was simply wishful thinking for him to deal with Feng Ling. He knew that Long Lai adored Feng Ling. It was precisely because of this that Long Lai could be said to be Feng Ling's puppet. Therefore, Long Mo had long given up hope. The outcome had long been decided, and he would eventually become nourishment for Feng Ling to break through to the combat ancestor realm. Seeing that Long Mo was no longer speaking, Feng Ling did not say anything else. She came to the side of the spiritual pool and slowly took off her clothes. Her beautiful body was enough to make any man obsessed. Feng Ling slowly walked into the spiritual pool and said to Long Mo with her back facing him, "Don't worry, it'll be over soon. When the time comes, I'll send you and your father to reunite in another world. Consider it a favor for teaching me for so many years." After saying that, Feng Ling closed her eyes and began to cultivate. The spiritual qi and the power of laws that originally belonged to Long Mo surged into Feng Ling's body crazily. Please collect, monthly vote recommend. Chapter 32-32. Long Mo's eyes were filled with despair as he looked at Feng Ling, who was cultivating with her eyes closed. This woman was very ambitious, and her methods were extremely ruthless. It could be said that she would do anything to achieve her goal. Now, he was firmly under her control. As for the situation outside, Long Mo could guess that the entire Dragon Phoenix Valley had probably been wiped out by her. However, his foolish son did not notice at all. The truth was indeed so. All the important positions in the Dragon Phoenix Valley were already Feng Ling's people. It could be said that Long Lai had no power at all, and he could not command the others in the Dragon Phoenix Valley. Several days passed before Feng Ling slowly opened her eyes. Today, she was going to the Azure Cloud sect to pick up Shao Chen and Lin Yun. Then, they would head to the Star Cluster Island together. She was still so beautiful that people would be involuntarily mesmerized just by looking at her. Unfortunately, under such a perfect skin, there was an extremely dangerous soul hidden. She glanced at Long Mo indifferently and ignored him. She directly left the underground palace. In Feng Ling's eyes, Long Mo was already a dead man. The day she broke through to the War Ancestor realm would be the day of Long Mo's death. After leaving his residence, Long Lai was naturally worried when he found out that Feng Ming was leaving again and would be going out for a period of time. The Emperor's tomb on Star Cluster Island is too dangerous. Furthermore, one has to be at least a half-step War Ancestor realm to enter. What are you going to do? This fool did not even know his wife's true cultivation base. Actually, quite a few people knew about Cluster Star Island, but the entry requirements alone were enough to keep countless people at bay. If one wanted to enter the Emperor's tomb on Star Cluster Island, one had to be at least a half-step War Ancestor realm. For a moment, everyone felt regretful. This was also the reason why the Dragon Phoenix Valley did not send a large number of people to Star Cluster Island. Since he couldn't get in, why should he waste his energy and energy? However, Feng Ming only replied indifferently. Let's go take a look. It's hard to say what we'll gain. Then I'll go with you? What if you go to the Dragon Phoenix Valley? Feng Ming naturally couldn't let Long Lai go with him. With a few simple words, he pacified Long Lai. Feng Ming went to the Blue Cloud sect alone. At the same time, in the Azure Cloud sect, the Azure Cloud sect's ancestor was drinking tea with Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. The three of them were all playing with the War Ancestor realm. Although Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were stronger than the ancestor of the Azure Cloud sect, in the end, they were all existences on the same level. Therefore, unlike other people, the Qin Yun sect's patriarch was indeed able to say a few words in front of Xiao Chun. Moreover, after becoming familiar with each other, the three of them would often chat together as if they were friends. Brother Xiao Chun, Brother Lin Yun, the tomb of the emperors on Constellation Island should be opening soon. Well, it should be about time. You should be going too, right? Naturally, I don't think anyone would be willing to miss such an opportunity. As long as one met the conditions, naturally no one would miss it. Moreover, it wasn't just the East Star continent. It was said that all the War Ancestor realm kings in the entire chaotic Star Ocean would come this time. The tomb of an emperor was simply too tempting for War Ancestor realm kings like them. Even if they didn't obtain the inheritance of this emperor in the end, there might still be other opportunities. At this point, the Azure Cloud sect's patriarch hesitated. There's something I don't know if I should say. What's the matter? Just say it. Brother Xiao Qin, you have to be careful of Feng Ming from the Dragon Phoenix Valley. That woman isn't simple. Moreover, that old fellow from the Dragon Phoenix Valley hasn't appeared all these years. I've actually had some guesses in my heart. The person the Azure Cloud sect's patriarch was talking about was naturally Long Mo. Indeed, people like Long Mo and him rarely paid attention to the secular affairs of the world. Even their respective sects were left to their juniors to handle. Unless they encountered a life and death crisis, they would not appear. Take the disciples of the Azure Cloud sect, for example. Some of them had joined the Azure Cloud sect for decades but had never seen the Azure Cloud sect's patriarch. However, even though that was the case, Long Mo's situation was too strange. After so many years, there was no news at all. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. The Azure Cloud sect's patriarch even guessed that old man Long Mo might have been killed by Feng Ming. However, thinking about it, he felt that it was impossible. With Feng Ming's strength, how could she be a match for Long Mo? However, if he didn't think so, he wouldn't be able to explain these things. No matter what, Feng Ming's danger was obvious to all. The Azure Cloud sect's patriarch was just reminding him out of goodwill. Most importantly, Feng Ming was extremely tempting to men. Although Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were already War Ancestor realm kings, it was hard to guarantee that they wouldn't be attracted. Xiao Chun only smiled at the Azure Cloud sect's patriarch's worry. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. The Azure Cloud sect's patriarch was thinking too much. Feng Ming was not simple, but she was still far from being able to attract Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. Lin Yun did not care about Feng Ming at all, and Xiao Chun was the same. Seeing this, the Azure Cloud sect's patriarch could only nod in agreement. 3 days later, Feng Ming came to the Azure Cloud sect again. Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, and the Azure Cloud sect's patriarch boarded Feng Ming's spatial spirit ship together, planning to head to Cluster Star Island together. The Azure Cloud sect's patriarch naturally did not have a good attitude towards Feng Ming. If not for Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, he probably would not have traveled with Feng Ming. On the other hand, Feng Ming actually took the initiative to smile and greet the Azure Cloud sect's patriarch when she saw him. It could be seen how scheming this woman was. However, after seeing Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, Feng Ming ignored the Azure Cloud sect's patriarch and went forward to bow. This little girl greets the two seniors. Nodding slightly, Lin Yun directly entered the room, while Xiao Chun stood on the deck. With the activation of the spatial spirit ship, they instantly disappeared into the sky and quickly headed towards Cluster Star Island. The East Star continent was not far from Cluster Star Island, but it would take a few days by spatial spirit ship. Because the tomb had not been opened yet, Xiao Chun and the others were not in a hurry. Looking at the scenery of the East Star continent, it was quite good, and it made people's mood involuntarily better. Just as Xiao Chun was admiring the beautiful scenery, Feng Ming slowly came to his side and said with a smile, "Senior, are you interested in the scenery of the East Star continent? If possible, this little girl is willing to accompany Senior to explore the East Star continent." Hearing this, Xiao Chun turned to look at Feng Ming with a faint smile on his face. This glance made Feng Ming suddenly quiver, as if her entire person was seen through by Xiao Chun. She could not help but feel nervous. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 32-33. Feng Ming wanted to rope in Xiao Chun, and Lin Yun was very obvious, although he did not know her exact goal. From the moment they boarded the ship, Lin Yun and the patriarch of the Azure Cloud sect had been in their rooms and did not come out. Feng Ming did not even have a chance to speak to them. Thus, she naturally came to look for Xiao Chun. However, facing Xiao Chun's gaze, Feng Ming could not help but feel nervous. Over the years, Feng Ming had seen quite a few combat ancestor realm kings. However, none of them gave her the feeling that Xiao Chun was on par with her. Feng Ming was actually nervous in front of Xiao Chun. This was simply inconceivable. "Are you nervous?" Just as Feng Ming's heart was in a mess, Xiao Chun said with a chuckle. In response, Feng Ming instinctively shook his head. "Senior, you must be joking. I didn't do anything. Why would I be nervous?" I heard that the patriarch of the Dragon Phoenix Valley, Long Mo, has disappeared for a few years. Feng Ming did not know what Xiao Chun meant by suddenly mentioning Long Mo, but her heart tightened for no reason. What did he want to do? She was nervous, but she still forced a smile on the surface. "Master has been in seclusion, so he hasn't appeared in recent years." "Oh? Actually, most people guess the same, but I have a different opinion." At this point, Xiao Chun paused for a moment and looked at Feng Ming with a meaningful gaze. Then, he continued unhurriedly. "If I'm not wrong, Long Mo should have already fallen into your hands. If he wasn't killed, he should have been imprisoned by you." Boom! The moment these words were said, it was no less than a thunderclap in Feng Ming's ears. The matter of imprisoning Long Mo was Feng Ming's greatest secret. Furthermore, this secret could not be known by others. Otherwise, the matter would be extremely serious. At the very least, before she broke through to the combat ancestor realm, this matter could not be known by others. Therefore, in the face of Xiao Chun's words, Feng Ming still intended to forcefully defend herself. However, before she could speak, Xiao Chun spoke first. "I know you're not a simple woman, but I'm not interested in prying into your intentions. Of course, I hope you don't provoke us. Anyway, to you, we're just passers-by." After that, Xiao Chun walked away. Xiao Chun could feel that Feng Ming had always wanted to use him. That was why he had said so much to her just now, which was rare of him. He had even mentioned Long Mo. After saying so much, Xiao Chen actually just wanted to warn Feng Ming not to have any ideas about him anymore. To put it bluntly, Xiao Chen didn't care what Feng Ming wanted to do, and Feng Ming didn't have to worry about Xiao Chen and the others ruining his plan. After all, Xiao Chen and the others wouldn't stay in the East Star continent for long. After leaving the sovereign tomb, they would probably leave after the Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others broke through to the divine ancestor realm. Therefore, Feng Ming didn't have to do that at all. Looking at Xiao Chen's back as he left, Feng Ming felt cold sweat break out on her back. What a terrifying man! How could she, who was smart, not know that this was Xiao Chen's warning to her? This was the first time, and it would probably be the last time. If she still wanted to use Xiao Chen and the others in the future, Xiao Chen would probably attack her without hesitation. She took a deep breath and forced herself to calm down. After this conversation, Feng Ming was indeed much more obedient in the next few days. At least, she didn't dare to be like before. Xiao Chen was naturally satisfied with the changes in Feng Ming. After traveling for a few days, they left the East Star continent and were about to arrive at Cluster Star Island. Cluster Star Island was like its name. It was an archipelago scattered in the starry sky. The area of each island was not large, and the smallest ones were only a little more than 10 square meters. And this time, the location of the Emperor's tomb was on the main road of Cluster Star Island. The main island was the largest, but it wasn't much bigger. At least compared to the East Star continent, it was simply too small. Originally, there weren't many people who came to Cluster Star Island, but with the appearance of the Emperor's tomb, Cluster Star Island suddenly became lively. Even according to the rules, one had to be at least a half-step War Ancestor realm cultivator to have the qualifications to enter the tomb. However, there were still many people who came to try their luck. Perhaps they would gain something? No one was willing to give up the opportunity to become stronger. After entering the main island, Xiao Chen saw that there were space dragon boats all around. Moreover, these space spirit boats were all heading in the same direction. There really are a lot of people here. It's useless no matter how many people there are. If you're not a half-step War Ancestor realm, you definitely won't be able to enter the tomb. The Qing Yun sect's ancestor said indifferently. The Qing Yun sect had already confirmed this point. This was also why, other than the Qing Yun sect's ancestor, no one else followed. It could be said that it was wishful thinking to come here to try their luck. There was no chance at all. Xiao Chen, Lin Yun, and the Qing Yun sect's ancestor stood on the deck, while Feng Ming stood not far behind the three of them. Although Feng Ming still hadn't given up on the idea of roping in Xiao Chen and Lin Yun, she had obviously restrained herself a lot after the last time. Soon, the group of people arrived at a valley. In the valley there was a small lake. According to the Qing Yun sect's ancestor, this lake was the entrance to the tomb. At this moment, the periphery of the valley was already filled with people, but they didn't dare to approach the lake. The reason was very simple. At this moment, above the lake, there were more than 10 space spirit boats, and on these space spirit boats, without exception, there were War Ancestor realm kings. With so many kings gathered together, those martial warriors with low cultivation naturally didn't even have the qualifications to approach. However, Xiao Chen and the others didn't care about this. They steered the space spirit boat and directly approached the lake. Following the arrival of Xiao Chen and the others, countless divine senses swept over in an instant. Especially in the dozen or so space spirit boats above the lake, the divine senses of the kings frantically swept over. In response, Lin Yun coldly snorted and released an aura, instantly dispersing these divine senses. Using divine senses to scan others so unscrupulously was definitely extremely impolite. If it was the strong against the weak, it was understandable. However, if the difference in strength between the two sides wasn't too great, then it was very likely that they would offend the other party. Lin Yun naturally couldn't tolerate this. However, as Lin Yun's aura was revealed, An aura also soared into the sky from one of the space spirit boat. Following which, a cold shout rang out. "Heh, what a temper! What, do you think you can cover the sky with one hand? Please collect, please vote, please recommend." Chapter 32-34. With so many war ancestor realm kings gathered together, there was naturally no lack of conflict. Moreover, Shao Qin and Lin Yun were unfamiliar faces, so they were naturally not taken seriously by the other kings. However, the person who provoked him clearly didn't know Lin Yun's temper. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Yun didn't respond at all. Instead, she directly slammed her palm towards the spatial spirit ship. Without saying a word, she directly chose to make a move. Everyone present was stunned. Although the kings didn't like each other before, no one would directly choose to make a move. The tomb was about to open, and no one wanted to be injured at this time. And once a battle between kings broke out, it was definitely impossible to escape unscathed. Because of this, even though the kings were all hostile, in reality, they were all very restrained. Unfortunately, Lin Yun was different from others. Others might be worried about this and that, but Lin Yun wouldn't think so much. "You're courting death." The sudden turn of events caused everyone to be unable to react. However, as Lin Yun's target, the War Ancestor Realm King immediately shouted angrily. At the same time, he flew out from the cabin and blasted out a circle, blocking Lin Yun's attack. This palm naturally couldn't land on the spatial spirit ship. Otherwise, no matter how good the spatial spirit ship was, it wouldn't be able to block the palm of a War Ancestor Realm King. The two of them collided head-on. The War Ancestor Realm King glared at Lin Yun, but Lin Yun was naturally not afraid of him at all. Taking a step forward, her figure instantly appeared in front of this person. Looking at the sturdy middle-aged man in front of her, Lin Yun's expression was as calm as an ancient well. With a thought, a long spear instantly appeared in her hand. Looking at Lin Yun's actions, the middle-aged man's eyelids twitched wildly. Was this guy crazy? He had just ridiculed him, but this guy actually attacked without saying a word. And from the looks of it, he wasn't prepared to let the matter rest. Wasn't he worried about the Emperor tomb? One had to know that once one was injured, one would be at a disadvantage in the following competition. That was indeed the case. Lin Yun had no intention of stopping. Just as the middle-aged man was letting his imagination run wild, Lin Yun had already thrust her spear towards the middle-aged man. Facing Lin Yun's attack, the middle-aged man's face sank as he cursed inwardly. Lunatic. This guy was definitely a lunatic. Otherwise, how could he do such a thing? Everyone else was trying their best to restrain themselves so that a fight would not break out. That was why no battle had broken out before. Even if they didn't like each other, they would just mock each other and wouldn't really attack each other. But as for Lin Yun, she didn't have any intention of boasting at all. If she was unhappy, she would fight. Lin Yun was unscrupulous, but this made the middle-aged man suffer. However, he had no choice but to use all his strength to deal with Lin Yun's attacks. As soon as she attacked, Lin Yun's terrifying power made the middle-aged man's heart jump. His strength was very strong. Even among the Battle Ancestor Realm Kings, Lin Yun's strength belonged to the strongest group. The middle-aged man knew that he wasn't a match for Lin Yun. The pressure was too strong. He immediately regretted it. If he had known that it would be like this, he wouldn't have said anything just now. He was simply lifting a rock and smashing his own foot. Unfortunately, Lin Yun didn't give him the chance to regret. Facing Lin Yun's attack, the middle-aged man took the initiative to retreat and dodge the attack. If he were to attack with all his might, the middle-aged man was sure that he would be the one to lose in the end. The best outcome would be that both sides would be injured. Of course, the higher probability would be that he would die and Lin Yun would be injured. He already had the intention to retreat, but unfortunately, his attack didn't hit. Lin Yun didn't give him the slightest chance to catch his breath. She leaned forward again and stabbed the long spear in her hand at him. As he dodged and resisted, the middle-aged man had no choice but to lower his head. Fellow Taoist, it was all a misunderstanding just now. There is no enmity between us. There is no need to be like this and let others take advantage of you. He took the initiative to lower his head. As he spoke, the middle-aged man took the initiative to pull away. Then, he didn't give Lin Yun a chance to attack and hurriedly cupped his hands and bowed. Fellow Taoist, please calm down. It was indeed my fault just now. Facing the man's initiative to lower his head, Lin Yun didn't attack again. She only gave the man a deep look, then turned around and left. Seeing this, the middle-aged man heaved a sigh of relief. She was a madman. She was simply an unbridled madman who didn't consider the consequences. After this battle, the other kings present didn't dare to underestimate Xiao Chen, Lin Yun, and the others in the slightest. First of all, she had the personality of attacking whenever she wanted. Such a person was like a piece of sticky candy. No one was willing to provoke her. Moreover, the tomb was about to open, so no one wanted to cause such trouble. Most importantly, although Lin Yun was crazy, she was still abnormally powerful. Among the many war ancestor realm kings present, at least 99% of them knew that they weren't Lin Yun's match. Only 1 or 2 people might be able to fight against Lin Yun. There was also a division of strength between kings, and Lin Yun was undoubtedly one of the strongest kings. An extremely powerful and unscrupulous madman. This was the reason why everyone was afraid of him. Returning to the splint again, Xiao Chen didn't find Lin Yun's actions strange. He knew Lin Yun's personality. Now our ears are close. Lin Yun smiled at Xiao Chen and said softly. The brief exchange just now had indeed intimidated the others. In this way, he believed that there wouldn't be any ignorant people who would come and provoke him again. Indeed, no one will come. Regarding this, Xiao Chen nodded in agreement. After seeing Lin Yun, if anyone dared to take the initiative to provoke her, they would probably have lost their mind. Feng Ming, who was at the side, looked at Xiao Chen and Lin Yun, who were talking softly. His eyes were filled with a complicated expression. These 2 men were really overbearing. At least, Feng Ming had never seen such overbearing people. Even those war ancestor realm kings couldn't compare to them. One had to know that the person Lin Yun had faced before was not some random cat or dog, but a genuine war ancestor realm king. But Lin Yun still did not give him any face, and just hit him as he wished. He could be considered to have seen the other side of Xiao Chen and Lin Yun. Next, Xiao Chen drove the spatial spirit boat to the center of the lake without restraint. There were only 2 spatial spirit boats docked in this large space. Even the other war ancestor realm kings didn't dare to casually approach this area. But now, seeing Xiao Chen's spatial spirit boat drive in so openly, no one dared to say anything. It was because Lin Yun's strength was already enough to be on par with the 2 of them. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 32-35. Xiao Chen drove the spatial spirit boat and slowly entered the center of the lake. The 2 spatial spirit boats that were already parked here did not have the slightest indication of Xiao Chen and the others' arrival. However, just as Xiao Chen parked the spatial spirit boat, a hoarse voice suddenly sounded out from one of the spatial spirit boats. The tomb will open in a few days. Why don't the 2 of you come over for a few drinks? He took the initiative to invite them. Regarding this, Xiao Chen and Lin Yun looked at each other. Clearly, they did not have any intention of rejecting, and the Azure Cloud Sect's ancestor took the initiative to speak. I'll stay on the boat. The Azure Cloud Sect's ancestor knew the identity of the person who spoke just now, as well as the other person. The 2 of them could be said to be the publicly acknowledged strongest in the scattered star ocean. Chen Zhan and Wu Qin. These 2 names could be said to be famous in the scattered star ocean. For example, although the Azure Cloud sect's ancestor was also a king of the War Ancestor realm, he could not be compared to Chunzhan and Wu Qin at all. It was said that the two of them were the first king of the War Ancestor realm to appear in the Scattered Star Ocean, and they were also the king of the War Ancestor realm who had existed for the longest time. Their cultivation had long reached the limit of the War Ancestor realm. Among the many kings, they were definitely the top group of people. The Azure Cloud sect's ancestor was still very self-aware. He knew that he was not qualified to drink and chat with the two of them. Moreover, Wu Qin, who spoke just now, only mentioned the two of them. With Wu Qin's strength, it was obviously impossible for him not to know of the existence of the Azure Cloud sect's ancestor. However, he still said so. There was only one possibility, and that was that Wu Qin had no intention of calling the Azure Cloud sect's ancestor for a chat. Hearing the words of the Azure Cloud sect's ancestor, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun did not force him. As for Feng Ming, it was even more impossible for her to have the slightest chance. Nodding slightly to the Azure Cloud sect's ancestor, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun stepped into the air and arrived on one of the spatial spirit boats step by step. Just as the two of them stepped onto the spatial spirit boat, the door of the boat's cabin was opened, and a beautiful maid respectfully walked out. "Lords, please." Under the guidance of the maid, Xiao Chun and Xiao Chun entered the cabin. The cabin was a small world of its own. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were already used to it. This kind of small trick was nothing to a War Ancestor realm king. The surrounding grass was churning, hundreds of flowers were blooming, and the air was even filled with a faint fragrance. Not far away, in a simple pavilion, two figures had been waiting for a long time. An old man and a young man. The old man had white hair, but his complexion was ruddy and his complexion was ruddy. The young man, on the other hand, was extraordinarily handsome. These two were the two strongest people in the Scattered Star Seas. The old man's name was Chunzhan, and the young man's name was Wu Qin. Don't be fooled by the obvious difference in their appearances. In fact, the two of them were from the same era. At the level of the War Ancestor realm, appearance was no longer important. Wu Qin took the initiative to speak with a smile when he saw Xiao Chen and Wang Chong approaching. "Fellow Taoists, please. The two of you shouldn't be from the Scattered Star Seas, right?" After the four of them were seated, Wu Qin asked with a smile while pouring wine. "Indeed, we're not." Xiao Chun didn't have any intention of denying this. They were indeed not from the Scattered Star Seas, and they didn't plan to stay in the Scattered Star Seas for too long. Hearing Xiao Chen's answer, Wu Qin's expression didn't change much, and he didn't continue to inquire about Xiao Chen and Wang Chong's identities. After all, it was the first time they met, and it wasn't a good habit to ask until the end. To put it bluntly, they weren't familiar with each other. Furthermore, the fact that Wu Qin and Chunzhan were able to invite Xiao Chun and Lin Yun here proved that Wu Qin and Chunzhan had already acknowledged Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. At the very least, Wu Qin and Chunzhan had placed them on the same level as themselves, completely different from the trash outside. It was precisely because they were on the same level that Wu Qin and Chunzhan had to give them enough respect. Otherwise, they would only part on bad terms. Xiao Chen and Lin Yun were far from being comparable to those people outside. The other kings of the Scattered Star Seas might be afraid of Chunzhan and Wu Qin, but Xiao Chun and Lin Yun definitely wouldn't. Therefore, Wu Qin was still very clear about what to say and what not to say. He personally poured wine for Xiao Chen and Wang Chong and then took the initiative to raise his cup. "Fellow Taoists, come and try the fine wine of our Scattered Star Seas." "Okay." Xiao Chun finished his cup in one gulp and said with a smile. "It's a good wine. We're in luck today." "Haha, fellow Taoists, you don't have to be so polite. Of course, there's enough fine wine. Looking at the two of you, you should be heading to the central region, right?" After a few cups of wine, the four of them became familiar with each other and casually chatted about some indifferent topic. Hearing Chen Zhan mention the central region, Xiao Chen nodded. It wasn't a secret that they were heading to the central region. Moreover, Chen Zhan and Wu Qin had probably already guessed that Xiao Chen and Lin Yun should be from the other 4 major regions and were from the 4 great palaces. This was not difficult to guess. The central region. I've been there before. Sigh, everyone says that the central region is the only hope of breaking through to the ruler realm. Unfortunately, even this only hope is very slim. Countless kings have gone there, but in the end, how many of them have succeeded? Seeing Xiao Chen nod, Chen Zhan sighed and said, as a king who didn't want to break through to a higher realm. It was precisely because of this that almost every king in the Fire Phoenix galaxy had gone to the central region, and many of them had gone more than once. Their goal was the same, which was to search for that illusory glimmer of hope. Unfortunately, after so many years, there were still very few people who could succeed. Chen Zhan was once one of these people, and like most people, he did not succeed. Hearing Chen Zhan's words, Xiao Chen smiled slightly. Hope is slim, but we can't give up. No matter what, we have to go and take a look. You're right. No matter how slim hope is, it's still the only choice. All right, the matters of the central region are too far away from us. Let's talk about the matter at hand. At this moment, Wu Qin interrupted. As soon as he said this, Xiao Chen and Lin Yun understood that the main topic had arrived. These 2 fellows would not be so kind as to simply treat them to a drink. He replied without batting an eyelid. Fellow Wu Qin, you can speak frankly if you have something to say. It's fine. Haha, in that case I'll be frank. This tomb can be confirmed to be left behind by a ruler. Perhaps there's a ruler's inheritance in it. However, as you can see, there are many competitors. Moreover, there's a test left behind by a ruler. Even for us, we're not 100% confident. What I mean is that the 4 of us join forces. No matter who obtains the inheritance, we'll share it with each other afterward. In this way, everyone will benefit. Of course, we won't take it out for nothing. The other 3 must give some compensation. What do you think? Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 32-36. Hearing Chen Zhan and Wu Qin's words, Xiao Chen and Lin Yun looked at each other. They didn't expect the 2 of them to have the idea of working together. Indeed, if the 4 of them worked together, the ruler's inheritance would be a sure thing this time. This was because there were so many kings and half-step war ancestors present, and the 4 of them were the strongest. If the 4 of them were still on the same side, then the others wouldn't have the qualifications to fight at all. Chen Zhan and Wu Qin had obviously thought of this, which was why they made such a suggestion. Compared to competing with Xiao Chen and Lin Yun, Chen Zhan and Wu Qin were more willing to cooperate. Xiao Chen and Lin Yun had no reason to refuse this suggestion, because it was beneficial and had no harm. Xiao Chen nodded in agreement. Sure. Haha, that's good. If the 4 of us work together, the Emperor's inheritance will definitely be ours. Seeing Xiao Chen nod, Wu Qin laughed loudly, and his heart was filled with confidence. After settling the matter, the 4 of them began to chat. From Chen Zhan and Wu Qin, Xiao Chen and Lin Yun learned a lot about the scattered star sea. Speaking of these 2 fellows, it was indeed interesting. The 2 of them were so strong, but they didn't establish any forces in the scattered star sea. It could be said that the 2 of them were rogue cultivators, and they basically wouldn't interfere in the matters of the scattered star sea. After living for so many years, the 2 of them only had one goal, and that was to break through to the Emperor realm. That's right, in their eyes, breaking through to the Emperor realm was more important than anything else. After all, they had already cultivated to the limit of the war ancestor realm. Who didn't want to break through to the Emperor realm? Only by breaking through to the Emperor realm could they be considered to have truly become the top combat power of the Fire Phoenix galaxy. They shared their cultivation experiences with each other. Compared to Xiao Chen, Lin Yun, Chen Zhan, and Wu Qin clearly had more research on breaking through to the Emperor realm. After chatting for a while, time passed unknowingly. On this day, there was finally a change on the calm surface of the lake. Sensing this, the four of them stood up at the same time, and Wu Qin said with a smile, "It's about to open." As they spoke, the four of them flashed and appeared outside the spatial spirit ship. At the same time, many other figures did the same. These people were all Battle Ancestor Realm Kings. Xiao Chun and the other three stood at the center of the lake, while the rest of the people stood at the back. As for the half-step War Ancestor Realm people, they stood even further away. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the surface of the lake. Under everyone's gazes, the water in the lake began to mysteriously evaporate. It was as if there was some mysterious power that quickly changed the terrain. The lake water evaporated and disappeared, and the lake turned into a deep pit. In the deep pit, there was a simple and unadorned stone door. This stone door had always been hidden at the bottom of the lake, and many people had gone in to investigate it before. However, there was no way to open it. He could only wait until the time was up and open it himself. Now was the time to open it. Seeing this scene, everyone landed one after another. Xiao Chun and the other three naturally stood at the forefront. This was the benefit of strength. The stronger one was, the more special the treatment one could receive. However, because the Azure Cloud Sect's ancestor and Feng Ming knew Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, they naturally received benefits and came to the two of them. Regarding this, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun did not say anything. All of their attention was on the stone door in front of them. After about 15 minutes, the sound of Sanskrit appeared out of thin air. This sound was very strange. It was impossible to describe what it felt like, but it seemed to be able to comprehend the great Tao. Needless to say, this was definitely the method of an emperor. Other than an emperor, no one could do this, not even Xiao Chen and the other three. "It's about to open." At this moment Chen Zhan spoke. He obviously knew more about the emperor's tomb than Xiao Chen and Lin Yun. The appearance of the Sanskrit Great Tao meant that the tomb was about to open, and this was what everyone had been waiting for. As expected, not long after, the stone door slowly opened. However, there was a layer of restriction around it. This restriction was the condition to enter the stone door. Only those who were half-step combat ancestor realm and above could enter the tomb. "Let's go." As the stone door opened, Wu Qin, Chen Zhan, Xiao Chen, and Lin Yun took the lead and walked towards the stone door. Without any obstructions, the four of them quickly entered. Following them were the Azure Cloud Sect's ancestor and the other combat ancestor realm kings. Of course, Feng Ming was also among them. Seeing that Feng Ming also entered the tomb without any obstructions, the Azure Cloud Sect's ancestor gave her a deep look. This woman had indeed concealed her strength deeply. Being able to enter the tomb meant that she was at least half-step combat ancestor realm. However, in the East Star continent, everyone thought that her cultivation was only at the divine ancestor realm. She had concealed her cultivation and deceived everyone in the East Star continent. She was truly someone who could not be underestimated. He had long known that Feng Ming was not a simple woman. However, at this moment, the Azure Cloud Sect's ancestors' fear of Feng Ming rose to another level. To be able to deceive everyone and cultivate to half-step combat ancestor realm, who knew when she would truly break through to the combat ancestor realm. Furthermore, the Azure Cloud Sect's ancestor was still wondering if no one in the Dragon Phoenix Valley knew Feng Ming's true cultivation. If even Long Lai and the others from the Dragon Phoenix Valley did not know Feng Ming's true cultivation, then what was this woman trying to do? He was puzzled, but he did not think too much about it. After all, it was not the time to talk about this. With the tomb opening, the Azure Cloud Sect's ancestor naturally wanted to obtain the inheritance of the Emperor. Although the chances were not high, who would be willing to give up? Many Combat Ancestor Realm Kings and Half-Step Combat Ancestor Realm Kings entered the tomb one after another. After that were those who came to try their luck. Their cultivations were uneven, but none of them were able to reach Half-Step Combat Ancestor Realm. Previously, everyone said that those who were not Half-Step Combat Ancestor Realm could not enter the tomb. However, there were always some who were unwilling to believe it. An old man walked out on the spot. This old man was a Divine Ancestor Realm cultivator. He stared at the entrance of the stone door and said in disbelief, "I don't believe that only those who are Half-Step Combat Ancestor Realm can enter." After saying that, the old man immediately walked towards the stone door. However, just as he reached the stone door, suddenly, a ray of light descended from the sky. After that, it directly hit the old man. Without any resistance, the old man disappeared in front of countless people. He was directly killed without any reaction. Seeing this scene, everyone's faces changed slightly. Everyone who came here with the intention of taking a gamble. However, at this moment, all of them shook their heads in disappointment. It seemed that the rumors were true. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation. Chapter 32-37. Those below the Half-Step Combat Ancestor Realm could not enter the tomb. This was something that everyone knew from the beginning. However, there were some people in this world who did not believe it. They felt that it was all made up by those big shots in order to have fewer competitors. Therefore, after knowing this news, there were still many Divine Ancestor Realm, ancient creatures, and world lords who came here. Their goal was the same. They wanted to try their luck. If they could enter the tomb, wouldn't it be a huge opportunity? Unfortunately, such a fantasy was defeated at the very beginning. The warrior who had been obliterated in front of everyone's eyes had told everyone a fact. The sovereign tomb was indeed impossible to enter unless one was at the Half-Step Combat Ancestor Realm. Disappointment appeared on the faces of countless people. Of course, this was nothing to the various kings. One of the kings who had yet to enter the tomb curled his lips and mocked. "A bunch of idiots. Do the kings still have the mood to fool you?" The kings naturally did not fabricate such a lie. To put it bluntly, even if these people could really enter the tomb, the threat they posed to the kings was limited. With their strength, it was simply not enough to compete with the kings. Since there was no threat, there was no need for the kings to go through the trouble of fabricating lies. To put it bluntly, this sovereign tomb was a battlefield for the kings from the beginning. Even those half-step kings would only be accompanying the kings if they entered. They had no competition at all. Xiao Chun and the others did not know what was happening outside because they were the first batch of people to enter the tomb. At this time, Xiao Chun had already entered the tomb. However, he was the only one around. As for Lin Yun, Chen Zhan, Wu Qin, the Azure Cloud sect's old ancestor, Feng Ming, and the others, they had long disappeared. It should be some kind of spatial ability that forcefully separated everyone who entered the tomb. Xiao Chun did not care too much about this, nor was he worried about Lin Yun's safety. With Lin Yun's strength, there would be no problem. There was a long passage in front of him. He could not see the end of it at a glance. The passage was very dim. He walked forward. Along the way, he did not encounter any danger. He did not know what kind of test the sovereign had set up. He walked leisurely in the passage. Not long after, the space in front of Xiao Chun suddenly changed. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Chun was no longer in the passage. He appeared in Emperor Dong's palace. Yes, it was his home in Emperor Dong's palace. Xiao Chun also saw Qin Shuru and his family members, Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, Xiao Qing, Bai Ruyue, and the others. However, his family members were all lying in a pool of blood. It was obvious that they had been killed by someone. Moreover, the aftermath of the battle continued to be heard around Emperor Dong's palace. It seemed that someone was attacking. Xiao Chen's expression did not change at all in the face of the tragic death of his family and the attack on Emperor Dong's palace. That Xiao Chen Zhan of Emperor's Combat Ancestor Palace. Whose play? This was a condition set by the sovereign. Those who entered the tomb were at least in the half-step Combat Ancestor realm. Who would be afraid of a mere illusion when they reached the half-step Combat Ancestor realm? In other words, could such an illusion affect a challenger? It was a little boring. Therefore, Xiao Chen did not stop. He stepped over his family members' corpses and continued to walk forward as if nothing had happened. Qin Shuru and the others died miserably. Unfortunately, it did not affect Xiao Chen at all. That was because Xiao Chen knew very well that everything was fake. Along the way, Xiao Chen acted as if he could not see what was happening around him, until one of the half-step Combat Ancestor Realm warriors charged at Xiao Chen. He looked as if he was going to attack Xiao Chen. Originally, in the illusion, everything was just an illusion. Therefore, such an attack was definitely fake. Just ignore it directly. There was no need to pay attention to it at all. However, when the warrior's attack landed and charged at Xiao Chen, at the critical moment, Xiao Chen's eyes flashed with a strange light. He moved his feet and his body instantly retreated. Just as Xiao Chen dodged, the attack landed. The attack was actually real. Turned out that the attacks in the illusion were actually real. Xiao Chen finally broke into a smile when he saw that. Finally, it's getting interesting. A simple illusion was no longer a challenge for Xiao Chen. After cultivating to such a level, Xiao Chen's state of mind was already as firm as a rock. He would not be affected by anything in the world. Therefore, when he first entered the illusion, Xiao Chen scoffed. After all, it was simply too whimsical to rely on the illusion to test him. Now, the attack in the illusion could actually materialize. It was real. That was interesting. An illusion that was both real and fake was naturally stronger than a simple illusion. Moreover, to be honest, this was the first time Xiao Chen had seen such an illusion. Just as Xiao Chen was thinking, the warrior attacked Xiao Chen again. However, Xiao Chen only pointed with his finger and directly killed the warrior. Following the warrior's death, his corpse fell in front of Xiao Chen. It was clear that this warrior was also real and not an illusion. A puppet. This warrior was not a living person. He was refined into a puppet after death. However, to be able to merge a puppet and an illusion into one, it could be seen that this ruler's methods were extremely superb. Illusion and reality, real and fake. This was the method of a ruler. After killing this puppet, Xiao Chen walked forward again. Not long after, Xiao Chen was attacked again. Moreover, this time, 3 people attacked Xiao Chen at the same time. He was ready to dodge, but just as Xiao Chen retreated, the 3 people's attacks landed. After that, the scene that he expected did not appear. After the 3 attacks landed, they instantly turned into nothingness. Illusion. These 3 puppets were fake. They were formed by the illusion, so their attacks did not have the slightest power. Seeing this, Xiao Chen shook his head and smiled bitterly. It was really difficult to determine whether it was real or fake. Even he could not tell whether it was real or fake. However, if he did not dodge and allowed these attacks to land, what if they were real? Was this the test of a ruler? It did not seem to be as simple as he had imagined. After confirming that these 3 people were formed by the illusion, Xiao Chen ignored them. No matter how they attacked, Xiao Chen did not care at all. Without exception, their attacks disappeared as soon as they came into contact with Xiao Chen. From the beginning to the end, they did not cause the slightest harm to Xiao Chen. Please collect, monthly vote recommend. Chapter 32-38. The attack in the illusion did not hit Xiao Chen at all. Nevertheless, just as Xiao Chen turned a blind eye to it and continued to move forward, an attack that suddenly appeared made Xiao Chen instinctively feel danger. It was mixed in with the illusions, but this attack was real. It was indeed impossible to guard against it. Fortunately, Xiao Chen's senses were sharp, so he chose to dodge at once. At the same time, in front of Xiao Chen, there were now 4 figures. Needless to say, the figures that had just appeared were not illusions. A strange look flashed in his eyes. He had a whole new level of respect for this illusion formation. At the very least, Xiao Chen had never seen anyone who could set up such a formation. While attacking and killing the puppet, Xiao Chen thought to himself, could the owner of this tomb be a ruler who's a formation master? If that was the case, to be honest, Xiao Chen might be a little disappointed. It was not that formation masters were weak. On the contrary, those who could break through to become rulers in the path of formations were certainly not weak. Nonetheless, for Xiao Chen, who knew nothing about formations, if the tomb's owner was really a formation master and a ruler, it would be much less attractive to him. After all, the inheritance left behind by a formation master was most likely related to formations. However, Xiao Chen had almost never come into contact with the path of formations. As such, the inheritance would be of little use to him. He could not give up the path of swords and study formations just because of a ruler's inheritance. Forget it. Since I'm here, I'll just take it as it comes. No matter what, he was already here, so he could not give up now. Whether it would be useful in the future or not, even if it was useless to him by then, he could just give it to Xianyuan Ling and Li Tian. With that thought in mind, Xiao Chen set off again. To be honest, the first illusion test did not pose much pressure to Xiao Chen. Even though the formation was unique and was both real and illusory, with Xiao Chen's powerful perception, almost nothing could hurt him. Xiao Chen walked all the way out of the illusion. Just as the illusion shattered, he finally reached the end of the passage. However, at this time there was no other way out at the end. It was as if this was a dead end. He looked around and saw that there were arrays everywhere. In other words, it would be very difficult for Xiao Chen to break the wall by force. What does that mean? He wasn't too nervous. On the contrary, he said with great interest. Since he had successfully passed the first level of illusion, it was definitely not a dead end. That was to say, there must be a hidden mystery. Xiao Chen looked around, but he didn't see anything special. After staring for about 15 minutes, Xiao Chen stood in front of him. A passageway suddenly appeared in the originally empty wall. A figure walked out from the passageway. As the figure approached, Xiao Chen quickly saw that it was a war ancestor realm king who had entered the tomb with him. If it wasn't a puppet, it should be one of the kings of the scattered star seas. However, Xiao Chen didn't know him, but this person obviously knew Xiao Chen. After all, Lin Yun had caused such a big commotion at the entrance. It was hard not to recognize her. Moreover, when he saw Xiao Chen, a hint of fear flashed in his eyes. He knew that Xiao Chen and Lin Yun were very strong, even strong enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with Chen Zhan and Wu Qin. As for him, he was only at the beginning of the war ancestor realm. Among the kings, his strength was considered to be at the bottom. At this time, facing Xiao Chen, this person was a little nervous. Moreover, he didn't know what would happen next. On the other hand, Xiao Chen seemed very calm. Because he didn't know what the next test was, Xiao Chen didn't act rashly. The two of them looked at each other like this. However, one of them was relaxed, while the other was extremely nervous. After the two of them stood still, the passageway that the person came from disappeared. A teleportation array lit up on the side, and a line of words appeared on the wall. The winner passes. These 4 simple words clearly explained everything. It was to let Xiao Chen and the person fight each other. The winner would be considered to have passed this test. If they didn't want to fight, the teleportation array on the side should mean that they had given up. They could leave the tomb safely, but it also meant that they had lost the qualification to compete for the emperor's inheritance. It was a very simple and clear rule. Xiao Chen smiled and looked at the person in front of him. How about it? Do you want to fight? He didn't know this person, and Xiao Chen didn't have the bad taste of casually killing people. If this person wanted to give up and leave, Xiao Chen wouldn't be aggressive. Hearing this, the War Ancestor Realm King obviously fell into hesitation. He knew that Lin Yun was very strong, but Xiao Chen hadn't made a move before, so he couldn't figure out Xiao Chen's background. However, to be able to be with Lin Yun, Xiao Chen shouldn't be an ordinary realm king. However, if he were to give up based on these guesses, he would be extremely unwilling. A ruler's inheritance was something that could allow him to defy the heavens and change his fate. Moreover, he had also experienced the illusion test just now. He also secretly guessed that this might be the tomb of a ruler formation master. If that was the case, he would be even more unwilling to give up because he was a formation master himself. If he could obtain the inheritance of a ruler formation master, he might be able to break through to become a ruler. The temptation was simply too great. He didn't make a move earlier. Perhaps his strength isn't what I think it is? That's right. How many kings are there like Lin Yun? He's definitely not that strong. He kept thinking to himself. At this moment, this person clearly thought that Xiao Chen was an ordinary realm king, because only in this way would he have a chance to win. He did not want to give up just like that. He felt that Xiao Chen was probably someone who was strong on the outside but weak on the inside. His strength was definitely not as strong as Lin Yun's, or rather, there was no comparison between the two. If that was the case, wouldn't it be a pity for him to give up? He had already come this far. No one would be willing to give up now. Seeing how the man's expression kept changing and how he remained silent, it was impossible for Xiao Chen not to know what he was thinking. He smiled helplessly. Since the opportunity had been given to him, he could not blame anyone for choosing to bless himself. Since you're not leaving, let's make a move. Looking at this person, Xiao Chen said indifferently. His tone was relaxed and calm, as if he did not care about the battle that might break out later at all. He did not care about this person at all and looked as if he was sure that he would win. Please collect, please vote, please recommend me. Chapter 32-39. Xiao Chen did not care about a challenger who was only at the beginning of the combat ancestor realm. Treasures were tempting, but sometimes one had to think clearly. If one was not strong enough, there were some things that one could not touch. For example, this person who wanted to forcefully fight for the inheritance would only end up with one result. Since he had already given him a chance, Xiao Chen would not hesitate to make a move. Moreover, the teleportation formation had already disappeared. It was obvious that there was a time limit. If no one chose to withdraw within the time limit, then only one person could survive. Seeing the change in Xiao Chen's eyes, the challenger immediately felt as if he was facing a great enemy. Although he kept encouraging himself in his heart and telling himself that Xiao Chen was definitely not as strong as Lin Yun, he still had a chance to win. This was similar to self-hypnosis, but to be honest, when it came to facing Xiao Chen, the challenger still could not help but feel nervous. However, Xiao Chen obviously did not give him much time to think. He directly pointed his finger and a sword ray went straight for him. How is this possible? Feeling the power of Xiao Chen's attack, the challenger was dumbfounded. Was this just ordinary strength? Judging from the power of Xiao Chen's attack, Xiao Chen's strength had definitely reached the combat ancestor realm, or even the limit. Compared to Lin Yun, it was hard to say who was stronger, but compared to himself, he was definitely much stronger. For a moment, the challenger was completely dumbfounded. He could not help but feel a sense of regret in his heart. All his previous thoughts were completely shattered at this moment. It was simply wishful thinking to be able to fight with Xiao Chen. Without any time to think, the challenger could only quickly crush a piece of the formation diagram to block Xiao Chen's attack. Seeing that the challenger could actually use a formation, Xiao Chen only smiled slightly. He did not expect this person to be a formation master. However, even if he had a formation, so what? Although this person had successfully blocked the attack with the help of the formation, it was only a casual attack from Xiao Chen. He had not even used his true ability. Therefore, the result would not change at all. Xiao Chen was not the only one who had realized this. Even the King Realm Cultivator had also realized this problem. Although he had blocked the first attack, it did not affect the final outcome of the battle at all. At this moment, he panicked and regretted it. He even begged for mercy. I admit defeat, I admit defeat. It was a pity that Xiao Chen shook his head when he heard Yi Futian's words. The teleportation formation has already been closed. It's useless even if you admit defeat. Only one of us can survive. It was not that Xiao Chen had to kill the man, but that he would not be able to leave this place if he did not kill the man. He did not want to admit defeat earlier, but it was too late now. Xiao Chen could not risk his own safety. Killing this person was the only way, so Xiao Chen had no other choice. As for pity, it was even more out of the question. It was his choice. Naturally, he had to bear the consequences. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the challenger understood the current situation. However, he did not have the courage to fight against Xiao Chen. He knew that he was no match for Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen did not say anything else. He attacked again. This time, he pointed with his finger. However, the power of his attack was far greater than before. Seeing the second attack coming towards him, the challenger's eyelids twitched. He had underestimated Xiao Chen's strength. Although the two attacks looked like casual attacks, the difference in power was huge. Facing this attack, the challenger did not dare to be careless. He hurriedly took out all the formation diagrams on his body and activated them all in order to block this attack. After another collision, the challenger's formation diagrams were all destroyed. However, he managed to block Xiao Chen's attack. Even so, there was no joy on the challenger's face. Moreover, before he could react, Xiao Chen's third attack came. This time, it was different from the previous two. In an instant, countless sword lights enveloped the challenger's body. He did not even have a chance to struggle. The aura of death assaulted his face, even though this person was shouting non-stop. "Senior, please spare my life. Please spare my life." However, the sword lights that filled the sky did not stop. They tore the challenger into pieces. The battle was not intense, as it had been one-sided from the very beginning. Xiao Chen's expression did not change much even after he had successfully killed the king-level being. In fact, with Xiao Chen's strength, it was not too difficult to kill a challenger who had just entered the combat ancestor realm. With the challenger's strength, it would be difficult for him to enter the Emperor Dong's palace in the eastern region. Although there were only 11 challengers in the Emperor Dong's palace, it did not mean that there were only 11 challengers in the entire eastern region. It was because the old man Donghuang's requirements were too high. Anyone who could enter the Emperor Dong's palace and become a challenger must be the top of the combat ancestor realm. When Xiao Chen first joined the Emperor Dong's palace, his strength was already not weak. What more now? The result was already predetermined. It was not worth being happy about. However, after Xiao Chen successfully killed the challenger, Xiao Chen frowned. Although the challenger's body was torn into pieces by the sword lights, the blood qi in his body did not dissipate. It seemed to be locked by something. Just as Xiao Chen was about to go forward to check, the blood qi suddenly sank into the ground and disappeared. This was definitely not a normal phenomenon. Was it a formation? Or was it some other method? But who was the mastermind behind all this? It was a little strange. Looking at this scene, Xiao Chen felt that the tomb was not as simple as it looked. There must be some secret in it. Just as Xiao Chen was thinking to himself, a passageway suddenly appeared on the wall in front of him on the left. This meant that Xiao Chen should be here for the assessment. This passageway should lead deeper into the tomb. However, after experiencing what happened just now, Xiao Chen's view of the tomb was somewhat different. Someone was absorbing the blood qi, but what could the blood qi do? Was it a method of resurrection? It was possible. Could it be that the owner of the tomb, the sovereign, was not dead? Was he trying to be reborn by devouring other people's blood qi? Many possibilities flashed through Xiao Chen's mind. Moreover, the sovereign's vitality was so strong that even if there was only a wisp of his soul left, he could still recover, let alone be reborn from a drop of blood. Therefore, it was not strange that the owner of the tomb had such a method. Please add it to your collection. Monthly vote recommend it. Chapter 3240. Xiao Chen felt that this tomb was a little strange, and was not as simple as the rumors said. However, without any more clues, Xiao Chen could not deduce anything. Moreover, it seemed impossible for him to leave now. Therefore, after thinking for a moment, Xiao Chen continued to walk forward. The other people who entered the tomb experienced the same thing as Xiao Chen. Some people defeated their opponents and continued to walk deeper into the tomb. As for those who failed, they could only die. However, there were still a few people who chose to give up and surrender. These people were generally at the half-step war ancestor realm. When they finally passed the first trial, they found out that they would have to face a one-on-one battle in the second trial. Moreover, if they won, they would live. If they lost, they would die. These half-step war ancestor realm warriors immediately surrendered. There was nothing they could do. They were facing real war ancestor realm kings. Under the difference in strength of a large realm, there was no need to doubt the outcome. Therefore, the smart choice to give up and surrender was obviously the best choice. And after they passed through the teleportation array, they were indeed safely sent out of the tomb. They returned to the familiar entrance once again. However, what appeared in front of them was completely different from before. The many martial warriors who had come because of the tomb had all disappeared. The entrance of the tomb was extremely quiet. However, around the entrance, a group of people suddenly appeared. These people were wearing the same clothes. Although there weren't many of them, there were only 12 of them. However, the auras on each of their bodies were as deep as the sea. Especially the two people in the lead, they gave off an indescribable feeling. 10 war ancestor realm kings. These people who surrendered were all half-step war ancestor realm cultivators. Naturally, they could tell that other than the two people in the lead, the other 10 people were all war ancestor realm kings. Moreover, they were not ordinary war ancestor realm kings. The sudden appearance of so many kings naturally shocked these people. However, what truly shocked them was not this, but the two people in the lead. Their auras were much stronger than that of kings. There was only one possibility, and that was that these two were emperors. Just the tomb of a dead emperor was enough to attract so many people, let alone a living emperor. Moreover, there were 2 of them. These people had never seen a ruler in their lives. One could imagine how much pressure they would feel facing this group of people. Where did these people come from? What was their goal? What did they want to do? There were countless questions in their hearts, but no one dared to ask because the people before them could easily kill them. Fortunately, these people did not seem to have any intention of making a move. One of the rulers even said indifferently, "Let's go." Hearing this, these people who had narrowly escaped death heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly left this place. As for the questions in their hearts, naturally, no one could answer them. They could only bury them deep in their hearts. After the group of people left, the 2 middle-aged men in the lead arrived at the entrance of the tomb. The 2 of them walked very slowly, but every step they took covered at least 100 meters. Moreover, the most shocking thing was that the 2 of them didn't use any spiritual energy at all. These were just small tricks, and the guesses of those who had escaped death before were completely correct. The 2 middle-aged men in front of him were indeed rulers, living rulers. Needless to say, there could only be one place where they came from, and that was the central region. In the entire Fire Phoenix galaxy, only the central region had the ability to send out two rulers at once. They were existences on the same level as Old Dong Huang. It's indeed the space-killing beast. One of them looked at the entrance that had been completely closed in front of him, and said calmly. When the entrance opened earlier, they, who were far away in the central region, had sensed it, so they rushed over as soon as possible. This was not the tomb of a ruler at all, but a mysterious space built by the space-killing beast. Speaking of the space-killing beast, it was very mysterious. Almost no one in the Fire Phoenix galaxy knew about it. Even the two of them, who were rulers, did not know much about the space-killing beast. They did not know how the space-killing beast appeared, nor did they know what kind of existence it was. They only knew that every time space-time appeared, it would build a mysterious space. This space could connect two or more galaxies. As long as a martial artist entered this space, they would be tested by the space-killing beast. Those who passed would be rewarded, and those who failed could only die. In other words, if there was an entrance to the space-killing beast's mysterious space here, there must be another one in another galaxy. People from different galaxies would compete in the space built by the space-killing beast. Even if the Star-Lord made a move, it would be difficult to break this space. There was no other way but to wait for it to dissipate. The people who entered this time are basically from the scattered star ocean, right? I'm not sure yet, but that's not important. The most important thing is how many galaxies the space-killing beast is connected to this time, and which galaxies are there. The space-killing beast, which had not appeared for thousands of years, had appeared at this time. This was not good news. This was because the Fire Phoenix galaxy was in troubled times. There were some things that the people below, including Xiao Chen, did not know. However, as rulers, the two of them knew very well. Following the collapse of the negotiations with the Azure Dragon Galaxy, a war was likely to break out between the two galaxies. A war between galaxies was not a joke. There could not be the slightest carelessness. The appearance of the space-killing beast had to be taken seriously. This undoubtedly attracted a part of the Fire Phoenix galaxy's attention. Forget it. Things have come to this, and it's not all bad. Although the space-killing beast is troublesome, there are also benefits. It depends on whether the people inside have the strength. That's true. That's the only way. The entrance to the outside world had been completely sealed off by the powerhouses of the central region. No one was allowed to get close. In the space built by the space-killing beast, Xiao Chen walked all the way. He encountered many attacks. These attacks were all from puppets. In the beginning, their strength was only at the half-step combat progenitor realm. Later on, they became real kings. Their strength could be said to be getting stronger. Xiao Chen did not notice before, but after noticing that something was wrong, he paid special attention to these puppets. During this process, Xiao Chen also discovered an extremely shocking fact. These puppets showed no signs of being refined. Impossible. How is this possible? Xiao Chen was naturally unable to believe such an outcome, as it was completely impossible for something like this to happen. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 3241. As everyone knew, any puppet had to be refined, just like a divine weapon or treasure. If one didn't refine it, one wouldn't be able to use it. It was even more so for puppets. If they weren't refined, they were just corpses and had no use at all. However, the puppets that he saw before him hadn't been refined at all. This made Xiao Chen unable to figure it out. How did unrefined puppets move? How did they retain their cultivation and combat strength when they were alive? At first, he only felt that this tomb was a little strange, but now, Xiao Chen was certain that this tomb was definitely not simple. This was because even a sovereign realm expert didn't have such a method. If there really was a sovereign realm expert who had such a method, Wouldn't all the corpses in the world be for him to use? Moreover, he could completely skip the refining process. There must be some secret here. Xiao Chen thought so, and then he stopped thinking about it and walked deeper into the tomb. The deeper he went, the greater the obstruction Xiao Chen encountered. At this moment, the puppets in front of Xiao Chen, without exception, had all reached the War Ancestor realm. Several War Ancestor realm king-level puppets caused Xiao Chen's expression to turn ugly. It wouldn't be so easy to deal with them. However, Xiao Chen still walked forward as before. These puppets were a little troublesome. At the very least, they weren't enough to block Xiao Chen's path. As he walked forward, Xiao Chen soon passed through the passage. What appeared in front of him was actually a huge arena. The spectator stands were empty all around, and in the center was a huge arena. This place, looking at the huge arena in front of him, Xiao Chen was puzzled. What did this mean? Was the next test going to be an arena battle? But where was his opponent? Could it be another king who had entered the tomb? He thought to himself. At the same time, not long after Xiao Chen arrived, a figure walked out from the darkness on the other side. He looked young, but his expression was somewhat gloomy. As soon as he appeared, his eyes locked onto Xiao Chen. Similarly, Xiao Chen was also sizing up the person in front of him. However, he frowned slightly because he had never seen this person before. Moreover, Xiao Chen was certain that this person was not from the scattered star seas. Only Chen Zhan and Wu Qin had reached the peak of the Battle Ancestor realm. However, this person was clearly not one of them. The sudden appearance of a mysterious person made Xiao Chen even more puzzled. However, at this moment, this person also spoke. He's not a bad opponent. If Xiao Chen could roughly see through him, then this person would naturally be able to see through him as well. Knowing that Xiao Chen's cultivation level was about the same as his, this person was obviously interested. Furthermore, from the looks of it, he seemed to know where this place was. Xiao Chen had also guessed this and asked calmly, "Who are you?" In any case, he's not from your Fire Phoenix Galaxy. Not from the Fire Phoenix Galaxy? Upon hearing this, Xiao Chen was stunned. How could this be? If he wasn't from the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, why would he appear here? Perhaps this person saw through Xiao Chen's conjecture, so he smiled and said unhurriedly, I told you that your Fire Phoenix Galaxy wouldn't amount to much. Didn't anyone tell you about the Void-Slaying Beast? You didn't know anything and just came in like a fool? Void-Slaying Beast? What was that? The more he listened to this person, the more puzzled Xiao Chen became because he had never heard of such a thing. However, Xiao Chen had a rough idea of what was going on after listening to the man's brief explanation. It was not detailed, and could even be said to be a few simple sentences. However, with this, Xiao Chen still managed to solve the doubts in his heart. No wonder this was not a tomb at all, but inside the Void-Slaying Beast's body. He did not know where the young man came from, but if there were people from the central region present, they would definitely be able to tell at a glance that the clothes this person was wearing were from the Azure Dragon Galaxy. For a long time, the two galaxies, which had been in conflict and could break out into a war at any time because of the breakdown of negotiations, actually met in the Void-Slaying Beast's body. The two of them each stood on one side of the arena. As time passed, more and more people appeared on both sides. Lin Yun, Chen Zhan, Wu Qin, and a few other kings appeared one after another. They did not quite understand the situation in front of them, so Lin Yun asked curiously as soon as she came up. Who are those people on the other side? They're not from our Fire Phoenix Galaxy, and this is not the tomb of a sovereign. In the face of Lin Yun's inquiry, Xiao Chen did not hide anything and immediately told everyone everything he knew. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, everyone's expression changed. How was this possible? After being busy for so long, it was not the tomb of a sovereign, but a void-slaying beast? For a moment, everyone found it hard to accept. What was this void-slaying beast? However, they were certain that there was no inheritance here. Moreover, in addition to this, there were also the mysterious people on the other side. They were powerhouses from other galaxies. At this moment, both sides gathered here. Looking at the surrounding environment, many people seemed to have guessed something. Just as everyone was guessing, a line of words appeared in the sky. Azure Dragon Galaxy, Fire Phoenix Galaxy, the arena battle begins. 10 people from each side come forward. The winner wins, and the loser dies. Sure enough, the arena battle began. Looking at the big words in the sky, the people from the Fire Phoenix Galaxy did not react, but the people from the Azure Dragon Galaxy were already sneering. Interesting, and it's the people from the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. Haha. Just nice. This time, we can kill a few more kings from the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. When we go back, we might be rewarded by the Star-Lord. The two galaxies, which did not see eye to eye with each other, were going to have an arena battle at this time. It was not difficult to imagine the smell of gunpowder. Even Xiao Chen and the others were stunned for a moment. Chen Zhan, Wu Qin, and the others' eyes were fixed on the people from the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Previously, they did not know the identity of these people, nor did they know where they came from. Now that they knew, killing intent was constantly gathering in the hearts of Chen Yan, Wu Qin, and the others. Azure Dragon Galaxy, no wonder. I was wondering where the people from are so annoying. It turns out that they are from the Azure Dragon Galaxy. No wonder, no wonder. Oh, an arena battle, huh? That's exactly what I want. I've long wanted to deal with these bastards from the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Battle intent and killing intent surged in their eyes. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 3242. This was the space inside the soul-devouring beast's body, so the rules were naturally set by the soul-devouring beast. It wouldn't favor any side, so the rules were very simple. Each side would send 10 people to fight, and the side with the most victories would be the winner. They could obtain the soul-devouring beast's reward and leave this place safely. However, the losing side could only stay here forever and become nourishment for the soul-devouring beast. As for the rules of the battle, they were also very simple. The one who survived would win. Apart from that, there were no restrictions on using any other means. The rules were very simple and crude, and there didn't seem to be any restrictions. Especially now that both sides were glaring at each other, they naturally wouldn't refuse this life and death battle. The Azure Dragon Galaxy and the Fire Phoenix Galaxy were already like fire and water. Because the two sides lived next to each other, they had the most conflicts and had already reached the point where there was no room for reconciliation. It was precisely because of this that the negotiations had broken down. It was said that both sides had already begun to prepare for the battle, and it was hard to say when the battle would erupt. There's nothing to say. Today, we'll cripple these people from the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Everyone spoke one by one. After learning about the soul-devouring beast, they were even less hesitant. If they wanted to leave this place safely, they had to defeat these people from the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Otherwise, they would all die. It could be said that new enmity added to old hatred. No one had a reason to retreat. It was the same for the people from the Azure Dragon Galaxy. They naturally wouldn't let the people from the Fire Phoenix Galaxy go, no matter which side you looked at it from. Both sides were filled with fighting spirit. At the same time, in the middle of the two sides, a huge stage slowly rose from the ground. The first battle was about to begin, and it wasn't difficult for the crowd to choose the 10 strongest people from both sides. On the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's side, Xiao Chen, Lin Yun, Chen Zhan, and Wu Qin were naturally on the list. As for the remaining 6 people, they were quickly decided. At this kind of life and death juncture, who would be a fool and put on a show? If you didn't have the strength and insisted on fighting, not only would you harm yourself, but also others. Choosing based on strength. However, in the crowd, Xiao Chen didn't see Feng Ming's figure. Presumably, she hadn't passed the previous test. However, he didn't know if she had successfully left or not. Previously, she had a chance to leave, but she didn't know if she had grasped it. Of course, Xiao Chen didn't care about Feng Ming's safety. Although they knew each other, that was all. The Fire Phoenix Galaxy had already decided on the 10 participants, and so had the Azure Dragon Galaxy. After all, the rules did not require the order of appearance. That was to say, whoever went first and who went later could be adjusted according to the plan. For example, if Xiao Chen's side sent an ordinary king to challenge the strongest person in the Azure Dragon Galaxy, the king would be able to defeat the strongest person in the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Even if they lost this battle, it wouldn't be a loss for the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. This was Tianji's horse race, using the weakest person on one side to exchange for the strongest person on the other side. Even if they lost, the Azure Dragon Galaxy would lose one of their strongest combatants. After all, everyone could only participate in one battle, regardless of the outcome. Naturally, Xiao Chen and the others, including those from the Azure Dragon Galaxy, had also thought of this. Everyone was planning the next order of appearance in their hearts. How is it? Who will go first? Lin Yun looked at Xiao Chen and asked. Even Chen Zhan and Wu Qin looked over. Obviously, everyone was now following Xiao Chen's lead. Facing Lin Yun's question, Xiao Chen smiled slightly. There's no need to make any fanciful moves in the first battle. I think the other side is the same. You go first. After saying that, Xiao Chen pointed to an old man beside him. This old man had a cultivation base of the Battle Ancestor realm, but his strength was still the weakest among the 10 participants. There was no problem for him to go first. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the old man nodded and didn't say anything. With his status and strength, he naturally had no right to speak. He could only choose to obey the order. Just as Xiao Chen thought, his side had sent the weakest person. The same was true for the Azure Dragon Galaxy's side. In the first battle, everyone would test each other. There was nothing fake about it. It was just a normal start. The cultivation base and battle strength of the two should be about the same, so it was hard to say who would win this battle. Looking at the two people in the arena, Xiao Chen and the others looked calm. At the same time, they also discussed in a low voice. Which one of you has a higher chance of winning? It's hard to say. The strength of these two people is almost the same. It won't be easy to determine the winner. Yes, but the longer it drags on, the more disadvantageous it will be for us. They couldn't fight a protracted battle. This was Wu Qin's opinion. Hearing this, Xiao Chen didn't refute. Instead, he nodded in agreement. Their cultivation bases were close, but the cultivator from the Azure Dragon Galaxy was obviously much younger. He should have just broken through to the Battle Ancestor realm. As for the old man on his side, he had been immersed in the Battle Ancestor realm for many years. Unfortunately, there was no possibility for him to go any further. One side was full of youthful energy, but unfortunately, they didn't have enough foundation. The other side was old and strong, rich in experience, but their physical strength was obviously inferior. That was why Wu Qin said that once they entered a stalemate, it wouldn't be good news for their side. It would even be very troublesome. After all, it was unrealistic to let an old man fight a protracted battle with a young man. Let's see. Could it be that our side has the advantage in experience? The battle was about to begin. From now on, no one could casually interfere in the matters in the arena. Otherwise, it would be determined that they had lost. Just as everyone was discussing, on the arena, the young man from the Azure Dragon Galaxy actually chose to make the first move. He took a step forward and his figure instantly appeared in front of the old man. Without any hesitation, he directly punched out. In the face of the young man's sudden attack, the old man's expression didn't change at all. After so many years of experience, He already knew how to deal with the next attack. The old man easily blocked the young man's punch. Seeing this, the young man's eyes flashed with a hint of meaning. Then, he clenched his fists and launched a fierce attack like lightning. The shadow of the fist covered the entire sky as if it was going to cover the sky. Under such a terrifying shadow of the fist, the old man was still as firm as a rock. In the blink of an eye, the two had already exchanged hundreds of blows. The main thing was that the young man's attack was too fast and fierce, like a flood or a ferocious beast. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation. Chapter 32-43. The two of them fought fiercely on the stage. Their speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, they had already thrown over 100 punches. However, such speed naturally couldn't escape the eyes of the people present. After all, those who could appear here were all Battle Ancestor Realm Kings, and their eyesight was extraordinary. The youth from the Azure Dragon Galaxy clearly knew where his advantage lay, so he didn't give the old man any chance to catch his breath. He knew that he was young and strong, and was at the peak in all aspects. Therefore, he wanted to suppress the old man. He didn't give the old man any chance to catch his breath or rest. This way, even if he couldn't defeat the old man on the spot, he could still exhaust him to death. The old man obviously knew what the youth was thinking, but he didn't have a good way to break out of this situation. Facing the youth's attack, he couldn't not fight back. Moreover, the stage was only so big, and the youth's speed wasn't inferior to his, so it was impossible for him to escape. He was completely in a passive position. The situation on the stage was naturally seen by Shao Chen and the others. Everyone from the Azure Dragon Galaxy smiled faintly. At this moment, their side had the advantage. As long as they maintained this advantage would turn into victory. This match is in the bag. The Fire Phoenix Galaxy is still as trash as before. They lost the first match. I think we can make it 10-0 this time. Everyone from the Azure Dragon Galaxy was extremely excited, as if they could already see victory waving at them. On the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's side, the situation was getting worse and worse, and everyone's expression was getting uglier and uglier. This was very infuriating. They clearly knew what the other side wanted to do, but they couldn't do anything about it. They couldn't do anything but accept it helplessly. Damn it, the people from the Azure Dragon Galaxy have long decided to fight a protracted battle. They still manage to grasp the weakness. The people from the Azure Dragon Galaxy aren't simple. They understood the advantages and disadvantages of both sides at a glance and made the best choice. Yeah, this person had already made up his mind from the beginning. Everyone spoke one after another, and there was a trace of helplessness in their words. Under the watchful eyes of both sides, the situation was indeed developing according to everyone's expectations. The old man from the Fire Phoenix Galaxy was getting more and more uncomfortable as the battle went on, while the youth from the Azure Dragon Galaxy was getting fiercer and fiercer. The gap between the two gradually widened, and the old man's original advantage couldn't be used at all. Seeing that he was about to be unable to hold on any longer, the outcome of the battle would probably be decided by then. How could they not be anxious? Unfortunately, they could only be anxious for nothing. The situation was becoming more and more unfavorable, and the young man was even more unforgiving. He kept pestering and his attacks became more and more fierce. It was as if the young man had been taking the initiative from the very beginning, suppressing the old man from the very beginning. Old thing, it's about time to send you on your way. Even the youth himself felt that there wouldn't be any problems in this match. He would be able to take first place for the Azure Dragon Galaxy. For someone like him, who wasn't strong to begin with, this was naturally something to be proud of. Moreover, after this stop, if they could return to the Azure Dragon Galaxy, they would definitely obtain many benefits. In his heart, he was already imagining the glorious moment after his victory. Faced with his mockery, the old man had no intention of paying attention to him at all. However, just as he finished speaking, the elder suddenly revealed a huge flaw. Perhaps it was because he had exhausted his strength and his reaction had slowed down. In a battle between kings, any small flaw was enough to change the outcome, let alone such a huge flaw. Faced with such a rare opportunity, the young man didn't think too much and directly punched out. Head die. In the young man's view, the old man had clearly reached his limit. If his punch landed, even if the old man didn't die, he might be seriously injured. At that time, killing him would be extremely easy. Facing the young man's fierce punch, the old man's expression didn't change at all. Just as the fist was about to hit him, the old man suddenly leaned to the side. It was as if he had practiced half of it in advance, and he narrowly dodged the punch. The fist brushed past the corner of the old man's clothes, but it didn't hurt him at all. Seeing this, the young man's eyes flashed with disbelief. How was this possible? How could the old man have dodged such a perfect opportunity? Unless… Thinking of this, the young man suddenly trembled. Previously, he had thought that the old man had revealed a flaw because he had exhausted his stamina, but now it seemed that this wasn't the case. This old man didn't exhaust his stamina at all, he did it on purpose. That's right, the old man had purposely revealed a flaw to lure him into attacking with all his strength, and as for him, he had jumped into the trap without any preparation. Looking at it now, the old man had dodged the attack, and the young man had opened the door wide, without the slightest bit of preparation. At the same time, the old man had already punched out. This time, without any surprise, the punch hit the young man's chest. Immediately, the heart meridian broke, and the blood in his body surged. His throat opened and a mouthful of blood spurted out. If it was a martial artist with a lower cultivation, this would be a sure kill punch. It would be enough to kill him with one punch. Even if it was a war ancestor realm king, if he was hit in the chest by such a punch, he would still be seriously injured. It would be impossible for him to recover quickly. In the blink of an eye, the situation took a turn for the worse. The young man who originally had the upper hand was now directly injured by a punch. This scene happened too quickly, but Xiao Chun and the others were overjoyed. They didn't expect that there would be such a move. This old man was not bad. He should have planned this a long time ago, and to be able to endure for so long, it could be seen how deep his schemes were. Xiao Chun and the others were happy, but on the side of the Azure Dragon Galaxy, it was uncomfortable. Everyone's expression was extremely ugly. The victory was clearly in their hands, but in the end, such an unforeseen event happened. Who would be able to accept it? Damn it! What an idiot! Can't he see such a simple bait? Many people couldn't help but curse. Now, he was seriously injured by a punch, and the young man's biggest advantage was lost. Next, the young man would no longer have any advantage in the battle with the old man. Instead, he would fall into an absolute disadvantage. Little thing, you're still too young. At this time, the old man looked at the young man who took the initiative to retreat with a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, and finally spoke. However, hearing his words, the young man clenched his teeth, and the anger in his eyes couldn't help but surge out. If looks could kill, the old man would have been cut into pieces. Sinister, despicable, shameful, these were the thoughts in the young man's heart. You despicable person! Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 3244. You are really a despicable person. The young man glared at the old man and cursed. However, such cursing wouldn't change anything at this time. Despicable? It's normal to be unscrupulous in order to win in a battle. How can I be despicable? If you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourself for being too naive. Upon hearing this, the old man smiled indifferently. He didn't think that his methods were despicable at all. Everything was just for the sake of victory. Moreover, this person had always wanted to exhaust him to death. According to his words, how glorious could such a method be? As soon as his voice fell, the old man didn't give the young man any time to breathe. He took a step forward and attacked the young man. Facing the old man's attack, the young man growled with an ugly expression. Damn it! However, his hand movements were not dissatisfied as he gritted his teeth and resisted. Although the young man didn't choose to surrender, his resistance was just delaying for time in the eyes of everyone. The strength of the two was originally evenly matched, but now the young man was seriously injured, while the old man was in good condition. Under such circumstances, there was no need to speculate too much about the outcome of the battle. Moreover, the old man was very experienced. Even if the young man wanted to use some tricks, it wouldn't be easy to succeed. The old man was also very steady. He didn't get carried away and try to kill the young man as soon as possible just because of the current advantage. Instead, he fought steadily and surely. Even if the battle dragged on a little longer, he still wanted to kill the young man steadily. The battle on the stage was no longer worth paying too much attention to. Below the stage, the atmosphere between the Azure Dragon Galaxy and the Fire Phoenix Galaxy was completely different. On the Azure Dragon Galaxy's side, everyone's faces were extremely ugly, as if water was about to drip from them. Who would have thought that such a battle, which they had the advantage from the beginning, would turn out like this? The sudden turn of events caught them completely unprepared. A loss was a loss. It would be strange if they were in a good mood after such a bad start. On the other hand, Shao Chun and the others from the Fire Phoenix Galaxy looked very relaxed. There wouldn't be any problems winning this battle. Who will the Azure Dragon Galaxy send out for the next battle? It's hard to say. After all, the Azure Dragon Galaxy will probably want to win this battle. That's true. At present, everyone had already begun to discuss the next battle. It was obvious how confident they were in their hearts. This was indeed the case. After half an hour, the battle was over. The old man finally succeeded in killing the young man. The young man's eyes were wide open. Even though he was already dead, one could still see his unwillingness. He died unwillingly and he lost unwillingly. Unfortunately, no matter how unwillingly he was, it was all over. The old man exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and slowly walked down the ring. He came to the side of Shao Chun and the others and smiled. Now that the first battle was over, it was time for the second battle. The candidates for the second battle were obviously very important. As such, the Azure Dragon Galaxy was still debating over who to send out for the battle. We must win the second battle. If we lose 2 battles in a row, it'll be too embarrassing. That's right. Let me go. I'll definitely kill those ants from the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. I'll go. 0-inch. Everyone took the initiative to ask to go on stage. For a moment, no one paid attention. Just as everyone was arguing, an old man at the back of the crowd who had not spoken until now slowly walked to the front of the crowd. Let this old man go. Following the old man's words, everyone's argument instantly stopped. After a few breaths of silence, everyone came back to their senses and spoke up excitedly. Elder of Arrays, this is only the second battle and you're going to fight yourself? It's a bit too early. That's right. It's not yet time for the Elder of Arrays to take action. We can go. Seeing everyone's attitude toward the old man, it was not difficult to see that his status was not low. At least among the many kings in the Azure Dragon Galaxy, he should be very prestigious. In reality, this was indeed the case. The Elder of Array's strength was enough to rank in the top 3 among the kings in the Azure Dragon Galaxy. His cultivation level had long reached the peak of the War Ancestor realm. He only needed an opportunity to break through to the Emperor realm. He was the ultimate existence in the Azure Dragon Galaxy. It was because of this that everyone found it strange that the Elder of Arrays was going to fight himself in the second battle. Logically speaking, the Elder of Arrays should not be fighting so soon. However, in the face of everyone's persuasion, the Elder of Arrays only smiled faintly. Hee, didn't you say that we can't afford to lose the second battle? If I go on stage, I will definitely win. Although his voice was calm, it carried an unparalleled confidence. It was as if no matter who he faced, he was certain he would win. Even so, I still think it's inappropriate for the Elder of Arrays to fight now. That's right. Alright, since this is what the Elder of Arrays thinks, then so be it. Everyone continued to argue. However, at this time, the middle-aged man who had been silent all this time suddenly spoke up. As soon as he spoke, everyone quickly shut their mouth. It was obvious that they were very obedient to the man's orders. The middle-aged man saluted the Elder of Arrays with his hands folded in front of his chest and said respectfully, "Thank you, Elder of Arrays. If that's the case, then I'll have to trouble the Elder of Arrays for the second battle." The middle-aged man's strength was stronger than the Elder of Arrays. Out of all the kings present in the Azure Dragon Galaxy, he was recognized as the number one. That was why his words were so convincing. Even so, when facing the Elder of Arrays, the middle-aged man was still very aggressive. This meant that the two must have crossed paths before. Moreover, the Elder of Arrays might have helped the middle-aged man before. Facing the middle-aged man, the Elder of Arrays was also slightly surprised. "Don't worry." After speaking, the Elder of Arrays stepped onto the stage and stood with his hands behind his back. At the same time, an elder from the Fire Phoenix Galaxy also stepped onto the stage. This person was Chun Zhan. Out of the 10 battles, this was only the second battle. Both sides had already sent out the people who were at the front of the line to the stage. Whether it was the Elder of Arrays or Chun Zhan, they were the top of the kings of the Combat Ancestor realm in the Azure Dragon Galaxy and the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. They were far from being comparable to ordinary kings of the Combat Ancestor realm. The two elders looked at each other. In the face of the upcoming battle, their eyes were as calm as an ancient well. There was no trace of murderous intent or battle intent. There was only calmness. "Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me." Chapter 3245. Whether it was the Azure Dragon Galaxy or the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, everyone involuntarily gulped as they looked at the two people on the stage. This was only the second battle, and both sides had sent out such powerhouses at the same time. The Elder of Arrays and Chun Zhan were both at the peak of the War Progenitor realm. They were only one step away from becoming sovereigns. Such people were definitely the trump cards of both camps. However, they had been sent out in advance at the same time. While everyone was shocked, the Elder of Arrays and Chun Zhan also felt the strength of their opponents. With a bitter smile on his face, the Elder of Arrays looked a little disappointed. I thought I could easily win. I'm old and don't want to risk my life, but it looks like there's no other way." If that's the case, you won't have to fight if you surrender. If it were any other time, I might really do that, but I can't now. The two spoke calmly. They did not look like opponents who were about to fight to the death, but more like old friends chatting. They did not make a move for a long time, but no one below urged them. After a full 15 minutes, Chun Zhan was the first to move. He slowly extended a finger and began to draw a formation in the air. He was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, he had finished drawing an offensive formation. Go! With a soft shout, the formation flew toward the Elder of Arrays and enveloped him in an instant. Facing Chun Zhan's attack, the Elder of Arrays also drew a formation in the air. His speed was just as fast. Before Chun Zhan's formation landed, the Elder of Arrays had already finished drawing it. The two formations collided fiercely, and an enormous pressure erupted from each other. In the end, they cancelled each other out, forming a formation in the air. Seeing the two of them make their moves, the crowd below the stage was stunned. Who would have thought that the two of them were both array masters this time? I'm afraid Chunjan has met his match this time. On the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's side, Wu Qin, who was the most familiar with Chunjan, said faintly with a smile. Forming a formation in the air could be said to be the most powerful technique of a formation master. It was also the most direct way to judge the strength of a formation master. As everyone knew, if a formation master wanted to build a formation, they must first have a formation plate, and it seemed that a formation could only be effective when it was drawn on a formation plate. This was also why many young Heaven's favorites carried a lot of array discs with them to save their lives. However, in the hands of a true formation master, the formation plate was nothing. It could even be said to be a burden. A true array master was different from ordinary array masters, who had to carry an array disc with them when they were fighting. Chapter 3246. Both the Elder of Arrays and Qin Zhan moved extremely quickly. The onlookers couldn't even see the method they used to inscribe the array. Under the bombardment of such an array, the two's spiritual power and mental strength were naturally being consumed quickly. This was perhaps the only weakness of array masters, their lack of stamina. That was because inscribing a formation would definitely consume a lot more energy than simply using a martial skill. Furthermore, it would consume a lot more energy. Of course, in a situation where the consumption was several times greater, the power was naturally not something an ordinary martial skill could compare to. If it were an ordinary martial artist fighting with the Elder of Arrays or Chunjan, it would probably be difficult to deal with them. This was also why the Elder of Arrays would rather fight someone else than Chunjan, who was also an array master. As the attacks continued, it was obvious that both the Elder of Arrays and Chunjan's breathing had begun to quicken. Fine beads of sweat had appeared on their foreheads. Huff, huff, huff. Their breathing became rapid and heavy. The two, who were originally still exchanging blows, suddenly stopped at the same time without any warning. Originally, they were still fighting fiercely, making the onlookers nervous. But in an instant, the two old men seemed to have discussed it and stopped at the same time. What's going on? Why did they suddenly stop? Yeah, they don't seem to be injured. From the beginning until now, neither of their attacks have hit. Why did they suddenly stop? Regardless of whether it was the Azure Dragon Galaxy or the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, at this moment, they couldn't understand why the two had suddenly stopped fighting. They weren't array masters, so they naturally didn't know what was going on in a battle between array masters. In the face of the commotion below the arena, both the Elder of Arrays and Chun Zhan ignored it. Although the two were panting from exhaustion, their gazes were incomparably calm as they looked at each other. Phew, if I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have come up for this battle. Fighting against an array master is really tiring. Who says it isn't? Haha, if it's possible, I would like to drink and chat with you. Perhaps we can become friends. Unfortunately, you and I won't have such a chance. After a fierce battle, the two of them actually felt a sense of appreciation for each other. There was nothing they could do about it. There were very few array masters in the first place, let alone array masters like them who had reached the king level of the War Ancestor realm. Based on all the things that the two of them had shown before, they might really become very good friends. However, it was a pity. Just as Chun Zhan had said, there was no chance for them to meet under such circumstances. So this was a battle between Matrix Grandmasters. Victory and defeat really were decided in an instant. Just as the crowd was talking, on the arena, the Elder of Arrays and Chun Zhan finally made their move. However, unlike before, the two of them were still constructing arrays in the air. After the arrays were completed, however, they didn't attack immediately. Instead, they continued to construct the second array. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Soon, there were 8 matrices hovering in the air in front of Chunjan and the Elder of Arrays. They had inscribed 8 arrays in one go, yet they still didn't attack. It was obvious that the two of them were planning to fight it out. It must be known that after one finished carving a formation, it was extremely difficult to continue carving a second formation without releasing it. Finally, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Chunjan and the Elder of Arrays had both finished inscribing the 9th array. Not only did they not need to inscribe new arrays, they also needed to maintain the previous arrays. This was very taxing on the two of them. Even Chunjan's face was pale and he was sweating profusely. 9 arrays was his limit. He looked at the Elder of Arrays emotionlessly. However, when he saw that the Elder of Arrays was inscribing the 10th array, Chunjan's expression changed slightly. Chunjan was very clear about this. When the final victor was decided, whoever carved the most spirit arrays would naturally win. Therefore, there was no time to think. Chunjan began to inscribe his 10th array with all his might. Begging for your collection, begging for votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 32-47. The Elder of Arrays and Chunjan both began to inscribe the 10th array. Actually, with their cultivation and understanding of the array Tao, 9 array formations was their limit. At this moment, in order to determine the final victor, both of them were ready to break through their limits and attempt the 10th array that had never been successfully inscribed before. As the two of them moved, it was obvious that as they continued to inscribe the 10th array, the previous 9 arrays began to fluctuate greatly. It was as if they would collapse at any moment. Therefore, not only did Chunjan and the Elder of Arrays have to do their best to inscribe the 10th array, they also had to stabilize the previous 9 arrays. This was because once the arrays collapsed, the consequences would be dire. At that time, the opponent would not even need to inscribe the 10th array. They would be able to attack directly. Therefore, at this moment, both of them were extremely cautious and did not dare to be careless. Large beads of sweat continuously dripped from their foreheads. At this moment, every step was a challenge for both of them. In the face of such an oppressive atmosphere, everyone below the arena stopped talking. It was as if they were afraid that if they spoke too loudly, it would cause them to fail. Although this was impossible, everyone was still extremely worried. Under everyone's attention, on Chunjan's side, the 10th array suddenly made a cracking sound. For a moment, everyone from the Fire Phoenix Galaxy was stunned. This meant that Chunjan had failed. He had not been able to successfully inscribe the 10th array. He had tried his best, but in the end, he still failed. Chunjan had tried his best, but the Elder of Arrays had already successfully inscribed the 10th array. Seeing this, the corners of Chunjan's mouth curled into a bitter smile. He and the Elder of Arrays were equal in strength. However, at the final juncture, he had not been able to break through his limits, but the Elder of Arrays had. As for this result, Chunjan did not need to be told. He knew what was about to happen. Although it seemed like there was only one array between the 10th array and the 9th array, this one array was the last straw that broke the camel's back. It was not just Chunjan. Below, Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, Wu Qin, and the others all fell silent. "It's over," Wu Qin said faintly. Wu Qin said faintly. His tone was filled with helplessness and grief. He knew what was about to happen. He knew that his old friend was powerless, but there was nothing he could do. Due to the rules, Wu Qin was not allowed to step onto the stage. Furthermore, this was the body of the void-slaying beast. If he made any sudden movements, not only would he not be able to save Chunjan, he would be the first to die. Just as Chunjan said, to go all out was the last respect the Elder of Arrays had for himself, and that was exactly what the Elder of Arrays did. Chernjan, let me send you on your last journey. As he spoke, the Elder of Arrays' attacks became even more ferocious. In the end, Chernjan's entire body was submerged in the endless formations. Under such an attack, Chernjan had absolutely no chance of survival. As expected, after the formation dissipated, Chernjan had already disappeared from the arena. Whether it was his physical body or his spiritual soul, they were all forcefully destroyed. Looking at the scene in the arena, the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's side fell into silence, while the Azure Dragon Galaxy's side cheered happily. As for the Elder of Arrays, he stood alone in the arena. His gaze was fixed on the spot where Chernjan had been. His eyes were slightly red and moist, but he forced himself to hold back. "This battle is truly memorable," he muttered to himself. The Elder of Arrays muttered to himself and stepped off the stage. Although he had won a battle for the Azure Dragon Galaxy, he did not feel the slightest bit of joy. "Congratulations, Elder of Arrays. The Elder of Arrays is still strong. We really did win." In the face of everyone's congratulations, the Elder of Arrays did not respond at all. This continued until a middle-aged man came before the Elder of Arrays and asked curiously, "What is it, Elder of Arrays? You won this round." Only then did the Elder of Arrays slowly give an answer. "Yes, I won, but I also lost a close friend because of this." As he spoke, the Elder of Arrays laughed bitterly. Just like the beginning, he returned to the back of the crowd and did not say another word. "Begging for your collection, begging for votes, begging for recommendations." Even the middle-aged man who had been praised by everyone revealed a confident smile as he looked at Zhao Lin on the stage. With Zhao Lin taking action, this battle should be in the bag. As long as Zhao Lin won this battle, he would be able to seal the victory in the next battle. Zhao Lin's absolute defense is still as difficult to deal with as before. There are no blind spots. The void body is really terrifying. Even the middle-aged man secretly sighed at Zhao Lin's terror. On the stage, Lin Yun attacked fiercely, but in the end, she didn't hurt Zhao Lin at all. When Lin Yun's attack stopped, Zhao Lin said unhurriedly, "It's useless. The space around me is comparable to the strongest defense in the world. You can't break it." Zhao Lin had a confident smile on his face as he said those words. Perhaps it was because he thought that he knew how powerful Lin Yun's attacks were from the previous exchange. With such an attack, it was absolutely impossible to break through his defense. With Zhao Lin's special physique, even if he didn't take the initiative to do so, the space around him would always protect him. This was equivalent to him being in an invincible position. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 3250. Zhao Lin had the void body and could mobilize the power of space. Techniques like the Space Guardian were only one of them. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhao Lin disappeared from where he stood. It was not a movement technique, nor was it speed. It was as if his entire body had merged with space. Without any warning, he appeared on Lin Yun's left side. At the same time, a short knife appeared in his hand, and the tip of the knife directly stabbed towards Lin Yun. His speed was extremely fast, and it was extremely strange. It was simply impossible to guard against. Facing Zhao Lin's attack, Lin Yun used all her strength to narrowly dodge Zhao Lin's attack. Zhao Lin did not pursue after missing his attack. Instead, he looked at Lin Yun with a sneer. "Space is my best partner, so you have no chance of winning." Zhao Lin had been able to ignore space since he was young. This was also his strongest point. With such an ability, Zhao Lin indeed had the capital to be confident. As soon as he finished speaking, without waiting for Lin Yun's reply, Zhao Lin launched another attack. Zhao Lin's attack method could be said to be unprecedented. No matter how fast the others were, they would at least have a trace to follow. However, Zhao Lin's attack did not leave any trace at all. It was as if his entire body had merged with space. With a thought, Zhao Lin could appear from any place or hide in space. In the face of Zhao Lin's strange attacks, Lin Yun was clearly at a disadvantage for a moment. She could only passively defend and had no chance to counterattack. Every time Lin Yun wanted to counterattack, Zhao Lin would directly disappear on the spot. This guy's ability, there's no flaw at all. He can absolutely ignore space. How can we fight like this? That's right. Lin Yun's speed is already fast enough, but she still can't hit Zhao Lin. This battle, when the people of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy saw this scene, they were all stunned on the spot. They were dumbfounded and did not know what to say. However, everyone had the same thought in their hearts, and that was that this battle was probably going to be over. This was because from the beginning of the battle until now, everything that Zhao Lin had displayed could be said to be impeccable. There were no weaknesses. To be able to control space to such an extent, let alone a war ancestor realm king, even an emperor would not be able to do so. His expression became more and more serious. This was a battle that he could not afford to lose. Under everyone's nervous gazes, Lin Yun's situation became more and more difficult. This was because Zhao Lin's speed was getting faster and faster. No, it shouldn't be called speed. It should be called the frequency of his attack. The frequency of the attacks increased, and Lin Yun looked more and more difficult to resist. Let's see how long you can last. Zhao Lin had obviously not reached his limit yet. He could still improve. In fact, Xiao Chen had already seen this point from the beginning. As the saying goes, the onlooker sees more clearly. Xiao Chen saw more clearly than Lin Yun. Zhao Lin belonged to a person who was seriously polarized. He had obvious advantages, but he also had fatal shortcomings. As long as one could grasp his shortcomings, then Zhao Lin was no longer a threat. We won. Xiao Chen chuckled. After Lin Yun said this, he knew that the Fire Phoenix Galaxy had won this battle. Zhao Lin had no chance of winning. On the other hand, on the Azure Dragon Galaxy's side, everyone naturally didn't believe Lin Yun's words. Only the middle-aged man remained silent. Oh, shameless boasting. I have the strongest physique, the void body. Why should I cultivate those martial techniques? You said you can crack my void body. I'd like to see how you can do it. After being directly pointed out by Lin Yun, Zhao Lin's heart burned with anger. He was an extremely proud person. He didn't believe that there was anyone in this world who could crack his void body. The void body was the strongest. It was a special physique without any flaws. This had always been Zhao Lin's belief. He had absolute confidence in his void body. He didn't believe that Lin Yun could crack his void body. It was absolutely impossible. As soon as his voice fell, without waiting for Lin Yun to reply, Zhao Lin directly disappeared and hid in the void again. He wanted to use practical actions to tell Lin Yun that what he said just now was just boasting. Seeing that Zhao Lin chose to take the initiative to attack, Lin Yun shook her head helplessly and revealed a sneer at the corner of her mouth. The void body was indeed very strong, but blindly relying on one's special physique would only blind one's vision. Everything has flaws. There is no such thing as perfection in this world. After saying this softly, just like last time, Lin Yun didn't wait for Zhao Lin to make a move. She suddenly swept the long spear in her hand. It seemed that there was no one in the direction where the long spear swept, but in the next second, what made everyone serious was that Zhao Lin actually appeared there. She saw through Zhao Lin's void body once. The first time might be a coincidence, but what about the second time? It could only be that Lin Yun had indeed found a way to crack the void body. This time, Lin Yun didn't even give Zhao Lin a chance to make a move. She had already found his location and directly cracked it by force. Impossible! After being cracked by Lin Yun again, Zhao Lin shouted in disbelief. How was this possible? How could Lin Yun do this? The confidence in his eyes had long disappeared and was replaced by a look of panic and confusion. Zhao Lin didn't know how Lin Yun did this. Among the countless people who had fought with him before, no one had ever been able to crack his void body. As long as Zhao Lin wanted to, no one would be able to detect him when he hid in the void.